we're still streaming live on the city's streaming channels and Facebook and social channels. Welcome to the September 2021 Charlottesville Board of Architectural Review virtual meeting. My name is Robert Watkins. I'm city staff, and I will be running things virtually tonight. Before I hand things over to our chair, Carl Schwartz, I'm going to go over a few quick guidelines to make sure that everything runs smoothly this evening. So first, for everybody who might be watching at home, I will introduce the meeting participants who are online right now. First, we have Carl Schwartz, our chair. We also have Brett Gastinger, our vice chair. We're joined by Sherry Lewis, James Zemer, Tim Moore, and Robert Edwards. And we're also joined by Jeff Werner, who is city staff and my colleague. Throughout the meeting, additional people will join the meeting as needed, particularly applicants who have projects to bring before the board. For members of the public who are watching right now, there are several places in the agenda where you can provide public comment. At the beginning of the meeting, we allow time for comment from the public for items not on the agenda. And then before the BAR deliberates on each individual application, we allow time for comment as well. If you wish to provide comment, we ask that you register for this meeting online, which you can find on the city calendar. And then once you enter the Zoom meeting, you can raise your hand using the raise hand feature, or if you're calling in, you can press *9 and you can speak for the allotted time. For applicants who are already online or maybe joining, when your project comes up, I will share my screen and go through pages of your application that you submitted. And I'll have control of the screen, but you can direct me to whichever page might be necessary at that time. And during the meeting, we'll have short periodic breaks as needed, and our chair will direct us for when those breaks are necessary. So finally, I can pass things off to our chair, Carl Schwartz. But if you have any technical issues during the meeting, you can reach out to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Welcome to this regular monthly meeting of the Charlottesville Board of Architectural Review. Staff will introduce each item, followed by the applicant's presentation, which should not exceed 10 minutes. I'll ask for questions from the public, followed by questions from the BAR. After questions are closed, I'll ask for comments from the public. For each application, members of the public are each allowed 3 minutes to ask questions and 3 minutes to offer comments. Speakers shall identify themselves and provide their address. Comment should be limited to the BAR's purview, that is, regarding only the exterior aspects of a project. And following our discussion and prior to taking action, the applicant will have up to 3 minutes to respond. Thank you for participating. So the first item on our agenda is the, matters from the public not on the agenda. So if anybody has anything that they'd wish to say that is not on our agenda or is concerning the consent agenda, which includes 301 East Jefferson Street, now would be the time to just either raise your hand or press *9.
Mr. Chair, we have 4 attendees, and I don't see any of them raising their hand right now.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we have the consent agenda, which again includes 301 East Jefferson Street. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. I think Tim beat me to it. I'll second.
I just raised my hand. That doesn't really mean anything, Sherry. You enunciate it, so you got it.
Would you like to second, Tim?
I'll second, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I will call a vote. Mr. Schwartz?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Zemer?
Yes.
Mr. Gastinger?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
And Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Thank you. The consent agenda passes unanimously.
All right, so our first item on the agenda is 209 2nd Street Southwest.
Unmute myself. Find that screen, make it big enough to read. Okay. Sorry, it's a lot of pages. All right, here we go. So this is a COA request for 209 2nd Street Southwest. This is a circa 1880 structure. It's known as the Watson House, two-story brick vernacular house within the downtown ADC district. You all reviewed this proposed renovations, rehabilitation back in August 2019. And this is a request to somewhat modify. This is not, we're not amending the COA. This is a new COA, but it is piggybacking on what had previously been proposed. And some of that is changing that. And I've put together, and I think, sorry, Robert, did you all get my PowerPoint or the PDF? Yes, it's in your staff report, starting at, well, on what's online on 45, 46, 47. So and I'm going to go back to my list. So again, the request to rehabilitate, renovate the exterior of the existing house and the existing rear addition. The modifications, they reflect a change in the use of the space, changing the use from a restaurant to a bed and breakfast, which is by right use. And the reconfiguration of the floor plan on the interiors is resulting in some of the changes that are being proposed. And first and foremost, as we said earlier, we discussed the front porch renovations, which were approved administratively, and make a note to talk about the railing and railing paint if there's any questions. But on this project, starting with what would be the east elevation of the front, the only change that's in this COA is there's an existing front door that opens in. They're changed to swing on that, I believe, to an outswing door, and from a 6-panel door to a insulated glass door with applied grille. The what side is it? The north elevation, and this would be facing the downtown mall. And Robert, you can go down one. And so the question on this was, they are because that first floor north room will be used as a bedroom, and building code requires a fire rated wall. So now the window has been removed, but the options to the BAR, given the fact that a matter of fire code, they have to do something there. So it's to replace it with a window that is rated, or to, as they've done and proposed, is to infill the opening with brick. I had offered up a few options. It could be accept this as it is, require a revisiting of the window. You could even, I think we typically request it when a window has to be removed, that we would hope that it is retained somewhere, put in the attic, so that at a later date it can be used in any restoration. To be honest with you, looking at some of the historic documents, I don't believe this window was original to the building. Certainly it's been in there a long time, but it's not part of the 1880 structure. So that's one item to discuss. Then swinging around to the west, so viewing it from the back, there are two existing windows on that rear addition. And to be clear, there's a single story addition. You can see there that doesn't have the board and batten siding. That brick addition was constructed very soon after the original building. It possibly dates to 1890. So treating that as original, but the 2-story board and batten addition and the section there, the single-story addition, not sure when those were done. But in the second floor, you see they had 2 years ago shown existing two double hung windows and show those being retained. In fact, and this is in the photograph, they are actually, it looks to be just as if they when that two-story addition was built, they took one of the windows and put a sash on one side and a sash on the other and put a hinge on it. So the request is to replace those two windows, I would say non-original windows, with a new casement window as they've shown here. The other change is that going into the rear of the main house, there will be an entry. There was a door originally proposed, and they're altering that, the step and entrance that goes in. Scrolling down then to will be the south elevation, the side. Pretty much what you see is at the top is what was existing. The middle is what you all had reviewed 2 years ago, and then at the bottom is what's currently being proposed. The only changes are that where the section of French doors was to be installed, and now going with two windows, and the installation of fixed skylights in the roof above. So not much is changing there relative to the original. And sorry, I'm scrolling on my screen and trying not to scroll on your screen. So, as I said, addressed the age of the building and the windows on the back of the house, that window on the first floor. I think that there is, a discussion to be had on that. The fact that it has been changed, it didn't come to the BAR, but there's a reality to what has to be done there. Whether while they didn't, process wasn't followed, we have what we have here, and I had asked the applicant to provide some additional information, which they did. There's about the paint, about the window specs. I had questions about the, it goes down to page 65, where begins the clarifications that Jim talked me through. And so I think really the only thing that I'm left, you want to just be absolutely certain of, is that we know this is an old building, and we know it's an old brick building, and that while the mortar color is provided, I think to take very seriously that the condition of the type of mortar that's used here, and that it is and a mason does the right job, that it's a lime mortar and not a Portland cement mortar. This is definitely one we want to apply that condition. And that's what I've got. Do you all have any questions? I know there's a lot there, but I was trying really to show what was approved before, how what's proposed now is some slight changes. And then if you have any questions on that, we can get into it. Carl?
No, are there any questions from the public?
I think it might be time actually for the applicant's presentation.
I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Jim, again, I'm happy to share my screen if you need me to go to any specific page.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. How do you want to go through this? What?
However you'd like, Jim. I can go page by page, or if you just want to do something quick.
Well, let me see if I can follow Jeff's format.
I would suggest, Jim, is just if you've got, I think these are relatively clear here, that unless the BAR has questions, you certainly can go give it a quick overview, I think, of anything that I didn't touch on entirely, but not necessary for you to talk for 10 minutes. But
well, I hope not. You don't want to listen to me for 10 minutes. So shooting around to the north side with the window that was bricked in, it's really unclear from the site survey that north wall is 3 feet to very close to 3 feet, and you're not allowed to have any openings that close to a lot line, according to the building code. So I'm not sure that a fire rated window would even be possible. So there's that one. If the board decided that they wanted to do an indent there with the brick, the south side doesn't have an opening on it. I wholeheartedly agree with you about the mortar, and in the condition that I found the building, that there's some repairs that it needs to get fixed. And as Tim will tell you, I'm pretty picky about this kind of stuff. So let's see. So then going around to the, do you want to go around to the west side? The back. So there's on the where the oven was going to go in the previous submission, that there's a steel door that's there. That thing comes out, and the idea was to go back to a window that was closer in keeping to what was original, and then again, in this case, I was thinking toothing in the masonry to match it. But again, if the board decided they wanted a recess there, reflecting where the door frame was, that's fine. And then the upper windows, was sort of game for whatever seems appropriate to everyone. The left one was clearly mismatched from the right one from the get-go. So if we wanted to match that, totally flexible on that. And then you want to shoot around to the south side elevation. Yeah, so originally the submission had the French doors and two side lights. As I understand it, the doors simply would not fit underneath the roof, and they were going to have to pry open the roof. So and you can see from the photographs that they omitted those doors at that point. And then I guess in order to meet egress for the restaurant, inserted the door where the window was around the I guess that's the west end of the original building. So then going around to the front, the proposal for swapping out the door is that, to me, is sort of that's a kind of a life safety thing, that if you left the door that's there, you're gonna headbutt somebody coming down the stairs, and I just don't think it's safe, and you end up with a train wreck. So really, when you have transient occupants like this, that the door out swinging is so much safer than an in-swing door, especially against a path of egress down the stairs. And of course, it's got to be glass so you can see when you swing the door up and you don't kill somebody on the other side. And to the point about the railings, yes, the existing railings are black metal, and the ones that are on the concrete steps going up to the building, that they'll just simply be repainted. There's a railing over on the left side of the porch, on the south side. It's clearly not original. It looks like a kit, and technically it's not required because there's less than 30-inch drop off the porch to the adjacent surface. So, but it still might be appropriate to put a railing back there, because again, the transient occupant thing. And then obviously the railings that go up the new steps onto the porch, will put the original railings back there as well. So I think that pretty much covers what Jeff had pointed out, I guess.
Thanks very much, Jim.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Jim. Are there any questions from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9. Doesn't look like a lot of public.
No, I don't see any raised hands.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Yeah, I just have a, wait. Hey, Jim, I've got one quick question. The railings going up the steps into the porch, I mean, given the height of the porch, those could still actually just be handrails, couldn't they?
Instead of guardrails?
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
it might be a lot less fussy. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think even going up the concrete steps,
Really, I need one.
yeah, that could also just be handrail because yeah. It's a little, pardon the pun, it's a little overwrought. So.
Gosh, I wish I had thought of that.
Yeah.
Ouch.
But in the, some of the existing photos, you can see the railings.
Yep.
So,
That's what I was just looking there. So I just wondered. Yep. And yeah, that's comments. I'm not commenting right now. I'm just listening, asking questions.
I got a question. Does the existing front door, the original front door, to the best of your knowledge,
sorry, say that again.
is the front door the original front door?
I honestly have no idea. I'm hoping Jeff might know, but I just don't know. And I don't
Okay.
think the owner is on, so. Yeah, I don't think he's on.
I couldn't tell. I couldn't determine. So that's best I can give you.
Take a harder look. All right, well, I'll comment there in the comment section.
It looks like Tim Burgess in the chat just said he doesn't know either.
Thanks.
So the landscaping and any sort of site lighting or anything, that's just going to come back as a later application. Is that your plan?
Well, we had sort of made a first pass at it. I've never submitted anything for a landscape plan, so I'm not sure how this works. I'm happy to talk about sort of general thoughts if that makes sense. That will get phased in, I guess, at a later date. Lead times on materials are so awful at this point. You know, if this proceeds and, you know, I think we'll be lucky to have this, you know, ready to go by the end of January. So
I think it would be fine if you separated the two and just
Okay.
once you have an idea of what you, or once you know what you want the landscape to be and come back with that rather than kind of guessing. That's
Okay.
fine.
Is it of any help to sort of go through it very quickly as a precursor, or?
You know, I would suggest, if nothing else, make sure that there's nothing being cut down, or being removed. If the BAR has, you know, any issues, there are no trees that I know of in the back, but if there's anything that you don't want removed,
Yeah, there's
helpful to establish, or
I don't
anything
think
that should go.
I don't think there's anything. I mean, the two dogwoods in the front will stay. The lower ground cover in the front is all kind of beat to hell, and that's got to get some love. And you know, the hard surfaces equally, you know, they're just pea gravel and concrete pavers, and you know, in this clientele, you've got to up the ante. So, but not cutting any trees down in the back and supplementing the wall that was previously approved. So, yeah. Just trying to keep it simple at the same time.
Sounds like a good approach. Doesn't seem very controversial.
And Mary Wolf's going to help me with it. So,
Oh, great.
Any other questions? All right, comments from the public, please raise your hand or press *9. See.
I don't see any. Nope.
All right, so comments from the board or
Not directly for the applicant, but just for staff. Thank you for doing the elevations, comparing the sort of existing and the 2019 approval, and then what's in front of us. That really helped me a lot, especially because I wasn't on the board in 19, and even if you were, I don't know how you would possibly remember. So that was super helpful on this and on the Gildersleeve application. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are we in comments mode? We are.
we are.
I would concur with everybody's conclusion, code aside, that I seriously doubt there was a window originally on that north elevation.
Yeah.
And the gable end. I mean, the house right next to us is virtually identical in terms of a section, and it doesn't have any windows on the north or south elevation either. And given that it's a bed wall, it kind of makes sense it never had a window. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, which was inspired by Mr. Zemer's comment, is it does seem to me like the front door ought to have a little more body to it. I mean, might not be as exciting as, or either that or be truly a modern glass door and save the other one, but like a truly modern door, as opposed to something with divided lights and maybe much more modern. But the other option would be keying off the old door where the upper 4 panels are glass and you have a solid bottom panel, something like that. It just seems just that divided light thing just doesn't feel like it has enough mentality to me. It just seems a little not front doorish, but that's just my observation. So anyway, but I agree that it needs to have glass. So functionally, I totally get what Jim's doing. I'm just thinking that maybe the door could have a little more personality.
If I can pick up on that, I guess I'll start with a question that I should have asked before. I believe I saw in the package the top 2 panels are currently glass, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I guess I might encourage y'all to look at the house next door at 213, see if those 2 front doors match and are historic. And if so, then the likelihood of them being original is higher. And then perhaps suggest just moving that existing door to the front side of the jamb so it can swing out. You've already got glass in the top 2 panels. I mean, maybe considering putting glass in the middle panels so it's a little more transparent would work, but that, would help preserve the original front door while at the same time achieving your safety goals. But I agree, it's probably a little more research would be needed to determine the age of that door.
To Google,
Next door. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
213 is divided lights, and it doesn't even look like true divided lights.
Right.
Yeah, the chat just says new, so never hurts to ask. But I guess, and maybe a question for Jeff, I didn't see in the staff report anything that spoke to a guideline about whether or not we allow replacement of front doors.
I mean, we do, we don't. It's interesting. There's so much focus on windows. I feel like doors get kind of have been forgotten. But I mean, the approach I've taken on this, and as with others, is that this is a building that we're going to breathe some life back into. I can't determine, looking at kind of over time and the pictures that are available, it's difficult to determine. And I guess, yeah, you probably go out there and do an analysis on this door and make a determination. The idea would be that what's replaced with is appropriate. And so that would be the key here. Now, is a full light, insulated glass door with grill appropriate? arguably, no. It would be a 6-panel door, presumably to what was there. And so that's where you kind of come down to the, there is no right or wrong. There is no yes or no. The guidelines just sort of offer that direction. And if we can, I'll go to that in the staff report and reread it. But I don't know if this was original. I can't determine that. It's hard to say. I know that what was originally there was not a glass door. So the option would be, while changing the swing, certainly makes sense from a public safety and access point of view. You all may very well request that this be a 6-panel door. That's your prerogative.
I think for me, it's kind of a case of either keep the door and reverse the swing, or replace it and just let it be, kind of up to the applicant. I agree with you, Tim, but I also feel like the divided lights don't really violate our guidelines, and it's obviously something new. So I think, it is, I don't know, where do we fall with anybody else have a hang up with this door being removed?
I sort of feel like the doors are almost like that's like a simple sort of stamp of ownership. Like you replace the door, like you fix your kitchen up, I unless it was a really spectacular door or clearly had a history, I think it's, to my mind, it's just open season on the door. My only issue is I just think it should have a little more personality, either be really modern or at least have more solid and void. I just feel like the just looking at it just feels like the current reads too much just like a patio door, and I just think it needs a little more personality. But I'm not going to sink or swim on that. I'd be happy to tell Jim that in person.
My microphone's still on.
What's that? Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
still hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm game for throwing some personality at it, Tim. It's just my biggest hang up is the transparency for life safety. And if it's a 6-panel that's got where the panels are glass, which I think is it the second yard that's next to Market Street Wine?
Yeah.
They have that. Something like that would be okay as well.
Yeah, I just think it needs to be something a little more personality. Like even my house has a glass door, it's just a 4-panel mutton. It's just not that that's something to model it after. I just think it needs a little more personality. That's all.
And if the door's modern, you guys are okay with that?
If I could suggest, I think, in reading, so doors are kind of jammed into entrances, porches, and doors. And there's, obviously, when we don't have something clear, would be to go back to what the Secretary of Standards said. And no doubt is to retain original material, not knowing if that is original or not. I can say on my house, I don't know, one door was completely eaten by termites. So, it's hard to say over the years. My house is the same age as this, what's original or not. But one of the keys here is to, at the very least, maintain existing openings and sizes. So we're not talking about taking out that frame and transom. We're talking about inserting a door that will fit. And I think now that might mean, I don't know how, like my front door, I think is 1 1/8 inches. But it's something might have to change with the stop. But to maintain that existing frame and trim, we're maintaining the existing transom. And if the size doesn't change, I think of also situations we've had where, like at the sorority house over on 17th Street, where there was a lot of concern about safety. And then there was another issue that I was able to resolve administratively. But, when you come to doors and safety and access, it gets a little bit more difficult than windows. And so my deference here would be is that, you know, the door could be retained and have, you know, so that it could be saved. If whatever is new goes in there, I think is stays in the existing frame and opening, and that doesn't change. I mean, even say here, you know, retain existing door hardware. You know, the locks on my front door, that would have made them, you know, 1880 with an old skeleton key. So I just think there's some room for some flexibility here. The question being, is a glass door, insulated glass with applied grills, that option? And that's the part I can't quite make a suggestion on.
So, and I think that's why we have a BAR. So, sorry not to be a, you know, how about, are there any, well, we've got the door, so we can come back to that. Are there any other issues with the application? Any other concerns or comments?
I'm just glad they're fixing the house.
Yeah. So how about,
It's simple
we
as
could
that.
take a, how about someone makes a motion for approval, and we will, I think one thing is the landscape needs to come back to us when it's been figured out. And we could make a recommendation on the door. Tim, I like your idea of, I mean, if you want to do something modern, or if they want to take the, just take the muttons out, I don't know, whatever, but if you want to suggest something, and we can see how that flies with the rest of the board.
Yep. Okay, I'll try. Having considered the standards set forth within the city code, including city design guidelines for rehabilitation, I move to find the proposed exterior alterations in 209 2nd Street Southwest satisfy the BAR's criteria and are compatible with this property and other properties in downtown ADC district. And I would like to also add that the BAR suggests that the applicant look into alternate solutions for the front door, and that this is a what's the word, an advisement and not a condition, but I feel that the door as designed is lacking personality.
Could you provide some guidance so that this wouldn't have to come back to us?
Yes, so I believe either it can mimic the existing door, but add more glass, or it can be an altogether modern door. And it needs to read as a door that, as a front door, not as a, you know, basically a door that's for a side entrance or a window wall. If that makes any sense, Jim.
Yeah. And you know, we can figure something out clearly. So this is great. I mean, this is marching order. So
Well, somebody has to second it.
Well, I'm going to suggest a amendment, and that's the trim and the casing needs to be retained.
Absolutely.
With modifications to allow the door to swing out, of course.
Yep.
And then also just that the landscape plan will come back to us.
Forgot about that.
2 amendments.
Yes. And if the door itself is determined to be historic, that's retained as well.
Define retained as in retained.
Retained,
or put
sorry,
in
no, right, retained on the property in storage.
But we can't put it in Tim's garage.
Oh no, put it in Sherry's.
Put it in the neighbor's yard. How's that, Tim? You still got storage next door?
Yeah.
My
Yeah,
garage?
actually, he'll take care of it. Good point.
I don't have a garage.
Tim, you accept those 3 amendments?
Yes, I do.
Robert, are you clear?
I am.
Okay,
Second.
I'll second. If no one else has,
Okay, I have Carl as seconding. I will call a vote. Miss Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Zemer,
Aye.
Mr. Gastinger,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards. Thank you. And Mr. Schwartz.
yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Mr.
take the sign
Mansell.
off the phone pole or wherever Robert stuck it,
Okay.
the advertisement.
Can I go to soccer practice now?
You can go. You can go. Just don't yell at the kids.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jim.
All right.
All right.
So now we have 106 Ocr Circle.
Yes,
Okay.
and we have
Patrick's here, which is good.
Yep.
Okay. So this is very similar in the sense of what we just looked at, in that this, you all reviewed this last December. So there's some modifications. Hopefully there's still some familiarity with what we looked at. Sorry, tongue tied. But this is a COA request for 106 Ocr Circle. This is a colonial revival craftsman style house constructed in 1922. It's a stucco house that's got, and they had come to you previously to do an addition on the rear. And so like we had done at 209 2nd Street, I just tried to, as much, also for myself, to go, all right, what changed? But I assume you all are visual too. And so on the left is a photograph of the existing, and on the right, each of these sheets, there should be 4 of them, showing what the BAR reviewed last December, and then what Patrick's back with now. And then go to, if you will, Robert, just go to the first page. I guess that's page 88, and I'll walk through that. So really nothing's changing on this front facade except possibly the silhouette of the rear addition that's been stepped back. Go to the next slide, please. The from the rear, or I'm sorry, from the side, and this would be the north elevation. So again, where there was a larger extended addition that was being built with parking below, it's been compressed into smaller units at the rear of the house. Same finishes, same design, same materiality, just a different shape. And Robert, next, please. This is the elevation from the rear of the house. You can see that, again, that everything's pretty much the same from this vantage point. It's just compressed into the rear addition of the existing house, or rear elevation of the existing house. And then there's one more elevation from the south. Roll that down, Robert. And again, just an inverse of what you saw from the north side, or not an inverse, just the opposite. And again, the compressed addition. And what, 2 things just, and Patrick, you can address in a second. One is that previously they were talking about replacing the existing roof of the house, which is now asphalt shingles with standing seam metal, and then the same would be applied to the addition. Patrick has a metal shingle in mind, and I'll have him address that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just to the extent that you all want to get some clarification or details on that. And then as far as, and Robert, go to slide 87. Please, thank you. So this goes to the question at the beginning. There's an existing driveway on the north side. Originally, the idea had been to construct a new driveway and abandon the existing one. And Patrick can explain the I guess reasons for preference for the loop driveway. It's appears to be allowed. There might be some fine tuning on the math in the sense of what percentage of a front yard can be X, Y, or Z. And that's where, when I was doing the math, it's like 0.01% one way or the other from what, when the regs say no more than 25% of a front yard. So I was going to sort of leave that fine tuning, that math to the city engineer and zoning and Patrick, and they can work that out there. But my goal was for you all and BAR, and there is the provision on the in the city code, and you don't need to scroll right, I got it right here, that the for off-street parking areas in an ADC district, city traffic engineer may approve a modification in the required driveway entrance width on properties zoned for multifamily, residential, commercial, industrial, following a recommendation from the Board of Architectural Review for such modification. So that's where zoning, although I realize this, I don't know what this is zoned for. I know what it's used as, but the this is what zoning directed me to have you all, if the BAR was comfortable with this design, and to include in a motion a recommendation. And I emailed that to you all a moment ago, just something I drafted, essentially saying BAR recommends that consistent with provisions of the city code, et cetera, the city traffic engineer allow flexibility relative to the required driveway entrance width. And of particular concern is to allow the proposed loop driveway and to the extent possible, preserve in place the existing granite curbstones. So it's support for the design, expressing to the city engineer that, you know, if some flexibility can be applied, that the BAR supports that, and for the following reason. It doesn't waive the ordinance. It doesn't change the ordinance. It's simply a recommendation the BAR can make that is you all are allowed to make per the ordinance. So is that helpful?
I suppose.
Sorry, my legal mind is slipping at this hour of night.
Helps me.
Does Patrick want to say something, or can we jump into questions?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean, I should have just said over. But so that's my staff report. I'm comfortable with what Patrick's presented. It's said the only two things would be on the roofing, that clarification on that, and then just that you all are comfortable with how I'm viewing the driveway. But otherwise, yes, Patrick, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, great to see everybody again. Yeah, so all we're doing is I guess, reverting back to just single family. Previously, we were going for a two-family, upgrade, so to speak. So one way to look at this addition is, if I know there's a photograph that has it's of the rear, which includes the existing, this poorly built, hopefully soon to be removed rear deck, and the footprint of the addition is almost perfectly coincident with that footprint. So in other words, very small addition. And to address your any questions around the roofing, excuse me, previously we were looking at two things. One is, of course, upgrading the existing roof, which is asphalt shingles, to stay in keeping with shingles, but upgrade to metal, interlocking metal shingles. And then the rear addition was going to have standing seam, and we had the advantage of that so-called hyphen that broke the roof forms apart. So it was easy to do it. Plus we had a lot more scale on the addition working in our favor. Now it's really about upgrading and then uniformity and integration. So the roof obviously being a smaller area on the rear addition, tying right into the existing roof, it just seems self-evident to me that it's the same material. So we're sticking with the upgrade to the interlocking shingle approach. So that's really it for the roofing. And then, you laid it out on the site plan. We're hoping to have fully off-street parking, hence the loop, the in and out. So that's really I guess the logic behind that site plan change. That's the only thing that's really changed in that respect. We still hold to making the landscape, planting improvements at the front yard, but the rear, we're going to scale that back as well, and just keep our options open for any future endeavors that we might want to undertake on the property.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions from the public? Please raise your hand and press *9.
We have one person watching it, and they're not raising their hand.
Okay. Questions from the board? Tim or Breck.
Patrick, I just have a question about, could you give us an update on the strategy with the trees in the back? I know that originally that was one of the major site drivers, and have any of the trees been removed, and how has the site plan changed your approach?
Right. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. So we this strategy is much more friendly, if you will, to the tree. The 3 oaks is what you're really referring to. That were in some concern previously. So we're, like I said, the addition is actually occupying the existing footprint of this deck, and that's it. So really no net impact. I guess yes, we'll be cutting a foundation in, but there's already disturbance there. We had the arborist who, in fact, was just here, I think a week ago. I just showed up I'm at the property now, and the one oak that was already essentially dead and would have to be removed no matter what, just got taken out. So that's gone. And he did give us some advice, around how we can approach not only the foundation, just keeping it shallow and all that good stuff that I think you all know, but also he'll come in and do some sort of aeration and feeding and nurturing of those trees as necessary. So we still intend to do everything we can to protect them, and the root zones in particular, of course. So that's one of the reasons behind this, is just pulling to dial it back to ensure that those trees are retained.
Thank you.
So I think the one thing, and this may be blindingly obvious to you, Patrick, but the one thing that's not clear to me is sort of the direction of travel. Because if I was to look at this, judging by the angle of the parking, I would say that you're considering the primary entrance the added entrance, but then the concrete grid apron kind of suggests otherwise. That's one thing. And then the other thing is that it seems pretty common, and I know this is the way the house was originally arranged, that the primary walk to the front door actually addresses the sidewalk and not the driveway. In other words, I would see it maybe having a spur over to the driveway, but more than anything, the circulation as it implied at the front kind of confuses me relative to the implied circulation at the back.
I guess anticipating, student, renters, and they're coming primarily from, sort of, I guess, was that counterclockwise, from the direction of traffic, following the same direction of traffic as they come in from classes and perhaps going out. So I guess that, that a bias to that's really the north, I guess, northern approach to the property. But also there's a kind of a landscape agenda there where I want to free up, take the sort of bisecting of the yard away and give more back to some plant diversity in that front yard space. So, and that the existing sidewalk needs to be redone completely anyway. It's just all busted up, and it's just old concrete that's been lifted by those oaks as they've been maturing. So we want to just take a different approach altogether and not even use concrete. And the grid paver section is really, the idea behind that is with respect to the closest oak to just allow more infiltration versus something that's just less pervious along that side. And yes, that is the in versus the out.
That would be the in, right? That where the concrete is. Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, that makes sense relative to the other side. So I guess the it is kind of, and I'm assuming that you're not tearing up the addition, the existing driveway, which is why you wouldn't have the same approach on the other side, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We're just essentially it's extending it down, connecting it to the loop, and improving it, with new material. So we're not, I guess we have a sort of grandfather in place there. So we want to hold on to that.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, I guess I'm thinking, and I'd have to go back and look at our guidelines, but I was thinking that generally it's sort of like when we were talking about the driveways being not cutting across the front of the house, that I understand what you're talking about in terms of the landscape, but I also don't think a footpath is really that much of a, you wouldn't really split the landscape and you'd be walking through it. But I think, and Jeff, correct me on this, but I would think that I know like on Park Street, we've generally encouraged people to maintain that connection to the sidewalk. But we'll see what people think on a comment standpoint. But I get what you're doing, but I'm not sure that I understand it. I'm not sure that it kind of fits with how I think the house should relate to the street, but well, that's a comment, so we'll wait. on that.
Well, let me one more thing that if you look, I don't recall the graphics. Yeah, there are plans included. So the front porch is being, I guess what I'm doing is favoring a little very subtle asymmetry to make the front porch actually functional and occupiable as a sitting area. So I've taken entry sort of off center. So back to that bias to the north reach of the property. So that's part of what's going on. It's just bringing traffic, foot traffic from that side versus down the center, so as to sort of reimagine how that front porch works versus it being a perfectly symmetrical space that you just sort of pass through. So the idea is that you have a place to sit in and actually enjoy just being engaged with the circle, as it were, and the landscape being much more active in terms of having, pollinator friendly plants and so on. And so we're really trying to emphasize that front yard as a place that you don't just pass through, but that you can actually, enjoy. So there is a little more to the agenda that relates directly to the redesign of the front porch, building these seat walls. I don't know if that's clear in the information that you have, but seat walls, and there's enough space. It's a big enough porch that a couple of people could sort of hang out and, take it all in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
I know we can't rule on program, but it kind of would help me understand a little bit about what we have to do with dealing with the city for these driveways. It's a single family home that you're going to have students renting. Is that basically what it is?
Yeah, that's nothing changed. It's been a student rental home for 30 plus years.
I guess the last iteration you actually had separate units, correct?
We were going for a two. Yeah, it was a 2-family. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was 6 bedrooms, and now we're pulling it back to 4, which obviously is the maximum allowable.
Can you tell us a little bit about these interlocking shingles? Was there a spec or something that I missed, or is there?
Actually, Jeff did you include those references that you?
I can't remember.
Came up with. So what I'm hoping is we've got a contractor on board. You all know who is a well-known contractor who's good at these sorts of projects, and I'm hoping just to, I hate to say it, but sort of figure that one out. It's it's a galvalume. There are a number of products. Like when you go online, what you get are installer websites, not the website where the product originates. It's really because it's got to be formed and such. So I'm really going to rely on whoever the roofer is to sort of work that out.
Okay.
So it's the same thing for standing seam. It's a galvalume standing seam, 1 inch. Seams galvalume. I mean, it's what it is, but it's an interlocking shingle instead.
So if this helps, I was shows how much things have changed since I stopped building. The interlocking metal shingles, my immediate thought is sort of the 1920s stamped, kind of a decorative, it might be egg and dart design, but there really is an awful lot out there. You can get metal shingle that looks absolutely like a slate shingle. So there's the thought I had was that if there's something that you all are not comfortable with on this period of house, maybe that's the way to express it. I think that it's it's a 1922 craftsman style house. It could look, I also think about like the diamond shaped interlocking shingle. So my note to myself was to really sort of ask you all, is there something on here that a type of roof that would really just not fly? Maybe we can work from there. Standing seam metal would be fine here. I guess the metal that I saw looked like maybe it looked a little more flat, a little more mechanical than the faux slate. But if I can try to see what I think there's some stuff that Patrick and I were sharing. Maybe I can shoot that out to you all real quick. That might help. So keep talking about something.
Well, while you're doing that, I mean, I would just go back to what I guess what we're after is we're assuming the original roof was shingles, but I guess, because there's no records, we just don't know.
Yeah, there's no.
Yes. So we're just holding, I'm thinking of it more in terms of texture, coloration, the hue and the texture. And okay, so it's a dark, I mean, what's there now is actually pretty awful. So anything we do, I think is going to be an improvement.
Yeah.
But I'm going back to sort of a slate. If it was if it was slate, why the heck did they remove the slate and put asphalt shingles up? I don't think that happened, but I don't know what else to think. But shingles certainly are appropriate. There's clearly plenty of precedent in this district. So that's the logic. It's shingles, it's the right texture, it's a color that is befitting, the period. It's of slate, some slate-like hue. I mean, standing seam is fine.
I just sent you all
I like it.
Yeah, some images that I sent Patrick. So if you have your go to your video screen.
Yeah, so I guess I was going to save this for comments, but I guess my concern is just like we've had I think it was the fraternity one to do, I forget which one that was. They want to do a faux slate out of metal, and it just had some very funny in conditions. Mm-hmm. So I guess my only comment would just be, since if we end up approving this tonight, it's gonna be something that Jeff is going to have to look at and say, yeah, that meets what they were discussing. So just that there's not some really chunky overlap of the shingles wrapping over the rakes or the gable ends or anything like that.
And no commercial ridge cap.
Trust me.
Yeah,
one of my biggest pet peeves as an architect. Those things, I don't know, it's like the flying nun cat hat on a ridge. I don't know. But okay, so how about this? What if we were to stick with shingles, the existing materials, but go to the highest end of fiberglass, not asphalt? I mean, would that be, I'm just asking, I don't think we want to do that, but that would be acceptable just simply by virtue of the fact that it's the existing material.
I don't think we can deny that. I think that
so it's we would make it a higher quality product, but it's the same. It's just matching.
Because you're replacing what's there. I don't think we can deny it.
Okay.
And I'm not saying anything bad about the metal. I just I think it's just some caveats that for Jeff to look out for. But are there the windows are we going to find will they have spacer bars between the ply buttons? Great.
Yes.
Other questions? Okay. Comments from the public?
I don't see any raised hands.
Okay. Comments from the board?
I'll go. I find, I think that the addition seems to be a responsible and a good approach. It's certainly as it gets scaled back and it has less pressure on it. I think it's more in keeping with the neighborhood and the house, and so whatever decisions led to that, I think it's in general probably a net plus. I do have real concerns about the driveway approach and the loop road. I think initially when we first reviewed it, I think that it took a bit to get over even the parking in the back yard. but given somehow it was kind of in keeping with the scale of the addition and the overall building. And yet, even at that time, we requested a consideration of moving the path to the other side so that it minimized the amount of paved surface. But the loop road in it, looking at it now, it seems very out of scale with both the house and the neighborhood. And looking back at the ADC description of this neighborhood, it mentions not like 3 times in the 3 sentences it describes the neighborhood. All 3 sentences refer to the mature plantings and lush character of this small pocket neighborhood, and it just seems like it's not required. I think that if I would be able to support an approach that still put the parking in the rear, if it were limited to a single drive, the existing drive would be probably preferred. But it just seems over the top to require a loop drive around the entire house to put parking in the back. It's just, I think, wholly out of keeping. The only other comment I'd like to make, and I think because the project had a number of things that we were reviewing in the past, we didn't really absorb the small retaining walls in the off-center entrance to the building. And given the stately character of the front of this house and its symmetrical facade, it seems a little tortured to pull that. I don't mind the path necessarily not going up to the center, but having the walls frame and off-center seems an odd addition to the front of this really great house. Thanks.
Yeah, I would second that. I mean, and my only real thing about the path curving off is just seems that, you know, the pre-car relationship of a lot of these houses was it went down to the sidewalk, down to the street. You know, you didn't bring them onto the into the yard. But I also think it has this very sort of English cottage quietness to it, the way it currently exists in that existing photo. And I think, you know, being able to, I don't think that having the pollinator garden split in half by a walkway, it could be truly just a walking path with a lot of green in it. I don't think that really bifurcates that space at all. I just think means you're in it. And I could also see even introducing, if you want to create more of an outdoor street area, maybe there's some seating area somewhere in the front yard that's in the middle of that garden. But I think it really counters the effectiveness of that hood and the front door and all that, to have that retaining wall kind of sliding everything off to the side and interrupting that front facade. I think I understand the sentiment, the concept, but as far as sitting there, but I just don't think it's that kind of a space right there. And I think it does fight the architecture of the house. And I'm also with Breck. I'm not really sure I understand the reason for quite so much driveway. It does seem like one entrance ought to serve.
Sherry?
Generally supportive of the application and the new addition on the back, especially I guess from the western side. The volumes are really nicely handled, I thought, with the stair coming down. It just kind of was a lot more appealing in its reduced shape. My big problem is with the addition of the second driveway. One of our guidelines for new construction does talk about the impact of gardens, you know, the impact of additions or construction on current gardens and landscaping. And we're really taking a big swath out of this front yard. The math that Mr. Warner is talking about, there are two that I think probably these driveways may not pass muster on. One states that the driveways can't occupy any more than 25% of the front yard between the building line and the right of way. And if you look on what's not page 91 of our packet and look at that top drawing showing it, the scale is kind of funky because we're looking at this electronically, but if you look at the very back of the property, you can see where the 25-foot setback line is, which would be the setback from the front. So if you apply that off of Ocr Circle and you look at whether these two driveways take up, you know, the more than 25%, I would say they, oh, you do have a building setback line on the front. There you go. Sorry, I just saw it, Patrick. There's so much going on programming in the front, I didn't see it, but there is a 25-foot just curved line noting that setback. And I really think that these exceed 25%. I understand, like Mr. Warner said, we can encourage zoning to waive that or give special consideration, but I'm not quite sure why. If the purpose of the reduced addition is to restore this to the R2 zoning, or we were just told single family zoning with renters, I don't understand why the programming all of a sudden requires a second driveway, which seems like it would serve a much more intense use. And planning for the future, for future use, this is R2 still only.
Right.
I just don't think these two huge driveways in this very small front yard are consonant with single family. There's another zoning guideline that we were sent that says the curb cuts are not to exceed 33% of the lot frontage. And again, you know, I don't have my sliding scale out and can't do that, but I would say that that's going to be pretty close. And we've already acknowledged that some of the historic pavers there might be impacted by that. So I just can't support the circular drive, but I continue to support this application and thank the applicant for, you know, crafting a really nice addition and endeavoring to be sensitive to the beauty of the landscape, especially in this backyard. Thank you.
So if I can jump in, so I went back and forth with zoning on this, and because that was one of the questions that Patrick raised about the area involved and the zoning's interpretation. If they've applied it is, yes, there is a setback line, but there, what is the setback to the from the edge of the right of way to the house? So, and that's where, you know, when I started scaling and doing the math, unfortunately, one of the problems is that our GIS, you know, where it typically is fairly accurate relative to parcel boundaries, this
It's
one
never
off.
accurate.
Well, they're
The parcel
fairly
boundaries
close.
are never accurate. The GIS is a mess.
Well, this one's off by
Sorry.
like 10 feet. So, you know, where I can, you know, typically just outline a polygon and get a dimension. I can't remember enough calculus to do it with the scale and all that. So I kept coming up with like 26% or 25.4% or whatever. So as far as that 25% is concerned, it's close. My slide rule just didn't go that far. Second thing, relative to the width across the front, the curb line's 52 feet. And I calculated that with the 9-foot existing driveway and the new 8-foot driveway, it would result in 32.6%, so less than that 33. So these numbers are all falling in these really fine, you know, decimal points. So that's why I just said, I'm not gonna, we are looking at the design, and, you know, whether it's 8 foot 6 inches or 7 foot 9 inches, you know, what is design okay? And to express then to the city engineer that when they go to interpret this, and one of the things that,
But I don't think it really even matters. I don't think that the design is inconsistent with the neighborhood at
Okay.
all. And that's our purview, is whether this is.
Agreed. And,
Well,
and
one
I
of-
would, and if anybody wants to read the city
Yeah.
code, which we're not, Jeff is correct, we're not responsible for enforcing, that's out of our, but the guidelines are there for a reason.
Right.
They're to set, you know, they're to limit the amount of hardscape and curb cuts in a front yard in a residential zoning district. And the language of 34,972 says it's 25% between the building setback line and the right of way. It doesn't say the building. It doesn't
Well,
say
I'm
the-
telling you what the zoning
Oh, I
administrator,
believe it,
yeah,
'cause
yeah, they've said, yeah, so.
Yeah, and sometimes I like to be on the receiving end if it's liberally interpreted. I may have that in play on something going on in my own yard, so I'm happy for it. But anyway, but I think the purpose, I mean, the spirit of it is, which Breck is trying to say, is that we have our gut is that it's not consonant with single family.
Okay, I got
It's
you.
just a lot more hardscape, and it does impact the gardens and landscaping in this front yard.
And I think in reference to your recommendation, Jeff, even if we found the 2 driveways to be okay, I would not want to give zoning the flexibility to say, well, all right, 2 driveways, but they need to be 18 feet wide. We'll take 2 feet off the minimum of 20 feet that we usually require. I would say that the BAR would set limits, and if zoning and the site plan review wants to do something different, the plan would have to come back to us.
Right, and so one of the things, and we've dealt with this with aprons, and think in terms of, and the reason I'm off, I want to explain this is that if perchance Patrick and they look at this, say, well, we understand we go with 1 driveway, we want to go with the one on the south, then that would be a new driveway, and I would still encourage you all to express to the city engineer to minimize the width of that apron, to minimize the disruption to the existing stone and curbing. So it's still germane to the conversation, whether you go with 2 or 1, and it happens to be the new one. So does that help? But so if we keep the old driveway and nothing changes, then nothing changes. But if they add a second driveway or add a new driveway and abandon the original, then I encourage you to make some statement about minimal disturbance relative to the apron. But yeah, no matter what you all say, there's setbacks relative to width of a driveway. And the reason I want to be clear about this is that when there was a project, probably when maybe a month in, and I didn't even realize it occurred, but a request had been sent to zoning and said, well, the BAR thought this driveway was a good idea. Well, just because the BAR discussed that it might be an interesting idea, that was not part of your motion, and it was not part of what the BAR approved. So I want to, even though it's not, you all can't change zoning, we can still make a recommendation to the city engineer that they can. I mean, they're not going to break their rules. You're just simply making a recommendation.
And I guess what I'm saying is, in cases where we make there's a difference between making a recommendation. I think we could also, on some site plan, say, this is what we're able to approve. If the site plan process does not allow it, it needs to come back to us.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, just one quick thing. I mean, if I were to look at the 2 driveways, I think my functional preference would be the lower one, just for the simple reason that it comes closer to the house, gives access to the porch, works to the geometry of getting into the garage and all that sort of thing. And that the one closer to the house on the north side is the one I would abandon, which of course, unfortunately, is the one that exists. But just saying in terms of preference, I think the new driveway is better in terms of the site than the old one. Even though it does actually separate the house from the yard, I still think it functions better, but I just don't know if it, maybe, I mean, I suppose you could change the angle of the cars, go the other way, but I think given the use of the house, having that, adjacency to that corner of the house, I'm assuming works well with your plan on the inside and all that sort of stuff. So
Right.
that would kind of be my preference. I don't know how about the rest of the board feels about it.
my one concern with that would just be that if it's a new driveway, I think there'll be even more pressure to make it a wide driveway. And the 20-foot minimum makes no sense to me, and it scares me, but it's sitting in our code. And I mean, I don't know how far they'd allow us to whittle that down.
Right.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
So Jeff, you may recall last year, I brought this up, and there was some internal exchange with the city engineer. And he basically said, look, we've taken on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, 20-foot driveway would make no sense here. And that's where we have the flexibility to, be very subjective about it. So that's what I would do. I mean, we would do is run it up the flagpole and hope that logic prevails. That you're right. It's just, especially with respect to that, percentage of eating into the landscape, 20 feet of more pavement or whatever.
Yeah.
Plus we have the oak, those two old oaks, one oak would have to go for that to work. And who would want to do that? So, and I would agree on with what Tim just said. I was kind of thinking as you were all speaking that's where I would, and I'm pretty sure my client would want to go, is to favor the new entrance, because it is actually safer. You sort of pass by coming around that part of the circle is kind of tight. So coming around and going past the house and then turning in, versus the way it works now is it sneaks up on you, because we've got the arborvitae row. It's very dense and comes right up to the street, right up to the sidewalk rather. And so you barely know the driveway's there. If you don't know, if you're a visitor, you will go past it. So the southern entrance does in fact make more sense. And since I'm now have the floor, I get, like, they're sort of saying it two ways to skin the cat on the front yard. I mean, we're not against the central, sort of retaining the center line entrance. What's there on the plan now is admittedly somewhat of a carryover. The same thinking that we had in place before, where originally that was really a pedestrian entrance down to the second unit in the rear. So I said, well, we're getting rid of that, but still we'll have pedestrian traffic that's going to inevitably go down that side and come in the back side, at times. So it seemed to make sense. So I don't have a lot of, I'm not hung up, I guess, on that scheme. If it sounds to me like that this is going toward sort of holding on to the current relationship with the sidewalk.
But I also think, then you've got quite a bit more, you have quite a bit more front yard at that point. So, I mean, there's certainly nothing precluding, some seating area or something within the pollinator garden and expanding it and really making it a nice place to sit. It just,
right.
Yeah, I think the two driveways just imply a different scale. I'm totally with Breck on that one.
Okay.
Does anybody have any concerns with anything other than the driveway? Do we have any concerns with the house?
I just have the retaining walls thing, but that's it. Yeah, that's all. I'm not worried about the shingles either, as long as you pick something nice.
I think, what would you guys think of, we could approve the house, and with that approval, the landscape stays the same, and then to allow him to get a building permit, and then the site plan could come back to us. Like, we can continue discussing, but then the site plan would come back to us as a kind of a new COA. If Patrick, if you're in a rush to kind of get a building permit going.
We're going to go tomorrow if we can.
And I think that would be.
I have drawings ready right now.
How do you guys feel about that? So we approve the house with no change to the landscape, and then the landscape can come back to us as a new COA to, we have a chance to, because I don't think we could administratively approve what we're discussing.
That's fine. And it's not, it's residential, it's not a site plan. It's this could be working with engineering on a curb cut. Tim, somewhat like what you dealt with.
So the driveway, I mean, there's parking in the back. There's
a point of order.
Mhm.
When you say approve the existing landscape, like we approved in December 2020 a change to landscape to abandon the driveway and add driveway on the south side, right? So are you saying we'd stick with that approval, or we're saying keep what's existing and come back with what you want?
I'm saying keep what is currently in place on the site. I mean, I guess I'm not sure that the old site plan still applies. And that's a good question. I don't know if, I mean,
because the
I
buildings
guess Patrick could
changed.
theoretically go and build that, but then
Yeah.
that goes.
The driveway hadn't
out of the
changed.
house.
Sorry.
Yeah, there are quite a few changes.
I mean, that plan goes with the house with the addition on the back. So without doing
Right.
full thing all as one, I think it becomes no longer valid. It's
Well, and you can make that statement, and it's, you're right. Patrick could
Right.
come
I
in
just wanna
tomorrow with the,
Clarify it.
yeah. And I appreciate that. I mean, Patrick could come in with the prior approval and still a COA for that.
Yeah.
It may, and
that would be for the whole project as it was before with the
yeah, and
large
then,
addition on the back and the one
Right.
driveway and the parking lot and all that.
this is part of the you know, that thing that Lisa Robertson had raised about, you know, don't amend a COA. It is a new COA, and so that, you know, we're very precise about it. But I think there's nothing wrong with you all making a statement of, you know, and what we reviewed previously is this is in replacement of that, and make that clear. I'm sorry, I'm getting hung up on the word site plan, but and I know that's the term that's used in the drawing. It's just site plan has that point of within what gets submitted to the city and all. So this is really in reviewing the driveway with zoning and with the city engineer. The other thing I would ask is that if, as far as what Patrick's going to do, is if you all, if it comes back and it modifies this, go to the drawing again, just that, I mean, so as it was drawn in December 2020, there was, you know, the parking area in the back was such that it allowed vehicles to do the T-turn and come back out. As it's drawn currently, the intent is pull in and park, back out, and continue another way. So there would have to be some modification to the parking lot area itself. So
You misunderstood. I'm not saying go back to the approved 2020 plan. I'm saying leave the ground as it is.
Oh no, I know.
Gravel driveway off to the right, and then nothing gets touched, because that site plan from 2020 goes with a different building than what we're looking at right now.
Correct. I'm making 2 points. One is, yes, go ahead and clarify that, you know, what was reviewed in 2020, this replaces it. And then just simply saying that when whatever comes back to you, depending upon the driveways, there will also be some changes that have to occur, I presume, in that parking area in the back. So, and not just that at the front yard. So, so if you know, so if you kind of can account for it in terms of, I would say, you've talked about the front walk and clarify that. The landscaping plan, as far as vegetation, nothing really changed as far as the paved surface goes. And as far as the driveway goes, you know, some clarification on that. So does that kind of help break it down?
Yeah, but I think it's also, I think we're going to be treating the landscape plan as almost like a preliminary discussion. So we're going to give Patrick some advice on what we think would be approvable. And then he's going to go back, and I'm sure there's going to be changes that he's going to have to figure some stuff out on his own. So we can't really, it's not, yeah, you're right. He'll have to move the parking or rotate the parking. And yeah, there'll be stuff he'll have to figure out. But we'll let him do that under some guidance.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he has to do a whole lot to the parking, frankly, because he's got a pretty generous apron to begin with, and then he's got the pull in underneath the house. So I don't think that's such a big deal, but I do think it needs to be a separate application. I'm agreeing with that bifurcation. That way he can keep moving.
So for the sake of, I guess, the preliminary discussion part of this for the landscape, we've got Tim, you're preferring the driveway on the south.
Yep.
Was that general consensus? There was the,
I could see a successful application with either scenario. I do worry a little bit, thinking a little bit more about student housing, that this quickly could become not a 3-car parking area, but 5 or 6 plus. And with the really sensitive vegetation back there, I'm just asked Patrick to think about that in a way that protects and is really clear about where parking is to be located.
Correct, you're referring to that big parking lot to the south?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the suggestion is to make the front walkway connect up to the sidewalk somehow. Is that a generally?
I mean, those are two really sensitive trees. I mean, I would be cautious about installing new sidewalk in that area anyway. I would recommend, and I think it would be consistent with our guidelines and the Secretary of Interior standards, to maintain the straight walk from the front door to the sidewalk.
Other thoughts? Okay. Maybe I'll try and make a motion for the house because I have a little list. And there it is. Okay. Having considered the standards set forth in the city code, including the city's ADC district design guidelines, I move to find that proposed alterations and new construction at 106 Ocr Circle for the house alone and not for the landscape elements satisfies the BAR's criteria and is compatible with this property and other properties in the Ocr Gildersleeve ADC district. And that the BAR approves that portion of the application as well, with the following conditions: that the muntins on the windows will have internal spacer bars, that the metal shingles should be reviewed by staff and should resemble shingles, and staff should pay attention to ridges and details at rakes and eaves. Is that fair, Patrick?
Yes.
Okay. And a very, very, very strong recommendation that the walls that have been added at the front stoop are not set asymmetrically. I'm saying that because it's already been approved, but just that I think we'd very strongly recommend that you keep some centrality to the walls that you've added at the front porch, or don't add them at all. And the previous application from December 2020, while still valid, is not valid in pieces. So you cannot go back and add the site elements from that without the house.
Understood.
Second, or amendments?
I'll second.
Okay.
Thank you, Sherry and Carl. I'll call a vote.
I'm gonna, sorry, just make a clarification, please. So, and I'm looking at the site demolition, and again, forgive me for being redundant, or beating a dead horse, or pick your metaphor analogy. So there are there's a couple of trees that will be removed. And I don't know if I don't want to hamper the construction process. So I don't, if those are to be, that's part of keeping things moving. Patrick, can the removal of those trees be approved, or is that again part of the whole? Just if it's not the house, you're not voting on it. And I see a crepe myrtle at the front, a dogwood at the front, a holly at the rear, and an oak at the rear. Those are the,
I think we need to say that we have not approved the site demolition
Okay.
plan or landscape plan, and we look forward to seeing a revised plan when it is available.
fine, thanks. I just make sure I got
makes
that
no
clear.
sense. Patrick, you've technically got 3 minutes if we've done anything awful to you.
But I just want a clarification to the clarification I mentioned earlier, that one of those, the dead oak was already removed.
And is that the
1, 2.
40-foot one in the back, Patrick? 40 inches rather?
Yeah.
Not 40.
The one that's more southerly, yeah,
Sure.
that was the nearly dead, essentially dead one. So the owner, he worked with Bartlett to get that taken out.
That sounds like a life safety hazard, so.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say a Monty Python line, Carl.
Not tonight.
Really dead?
Oh, yeah. All right. Did Sherry seconded? Is that correct? Okay.
Yes. I'm going to, so the Brex piece about looking forward to the landscape plan, I'm adding that to the motion that I'm recording as well, if that's accepted.
I accept that.
Mr. Moore, I'm calling a vote.
Aye.
Mr. Gastinger,
Aye.
Mr. Zemer,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards, Ms. Lewis,
Aye.
and Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
Thank you. It passes unanimously. Thank you, Patrick.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you. Have a good evening. Take care.
Bye.
I should see it.
All right. Next application. Does anybody want to break? Keep going. You want to break? Okay. 5 minutes. So, well, it's 7:07, 7:15. Let's come back.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, Robert, I decided to join you since you're sitting there. And there's the noisy guy.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the loneliest face, and I was like, oh my
And
god.
I was like, what is Robert doing?
Like, oh
Probably
my,
interrupting him. He was probably checking Facebook.
yeah, like,
He's looking very studious or something. I don't know.
oh god.
I don't have any social media. I'm just doing some research, eating some pretzels. Very sad life.
Sadly. It's
This next house, it's interesting. It doesn't mention I would just say designed by Eugene Bradbury. Sorry, I missed that completely. I was going
Yeah.
through the historic thing and I didn't see it.
I loved his science fiction.
Yes, he was very good looking. This was in his house phase.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, sorry, it was one of the things I get used to when I came here. I was like, oh, Eugene Bradbury. I was like, God, didn't he write stuff I read in high
Does
school?
it say that in the survey? How did I miss it?
It's in there. I
Or just
Yeah.
a fairly architect design house. I mean, it's very, Lutyens-esque,
I don't have to beat Robert Watkins again for failing to proofread that.
Sorry. Also, did y'all hear my fire alarm go off? I think I was not on
Did you-
mute and it just freaked me out.
No. Did you get
Yeah.
a single file and leave the building?
No, but I had to sit here, so hopefully there's not a fire somewhere in my apartment. I don't smell anything, so.
What's that just behind? No.
Oh, he's got cool stuff. He's got cool stuff. We got to go to his place. He lives in a cool house in the basement, so he doesn't have to stop, drop, and roll. He's already at the bottom. But
Yeah.
his-
I'll have the holiday party, the BAR holiday party at my apartment. So
actually, we were talking about that, so I'm going to add that to the list. But yeah, Robert, like his grandmother was an opera singer, or grandfather, or
great aunt.
great aunt,
What was their name, Robert?
Giacomo Puccini, right?
No. Her name was Jane Stuart Smith. She wasn't very famous, but she did have a very brief European career.
Jane
So,
what?
Her name was Jane Stuart Smith.
Show the poster. Hold up your camera.
Uh,
Show it off.
I have to turn
Well,
my
I
computer
noticed
around.
your new digs, Robert, like you used to have a radiator and a stereo behind you. Sorry, but
I
got used
I
to that.
changed
And now
my-
I'm really disoriented because you have nice art behind you.
I have a tray table now, so instead of having to sit at my desk, I can go sit in a much more comfortable chair than where I used to sit. So I'm just a 90-degree angle from where I used to sit.
And is Jeff right that you're in a basement of a courthouse? What?
No. It is a basement apartment, but the terrain slopes down, so I actually have full-length windows. But I live in North Downtown on Altamont Circle.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it is the basement back. Probably where they used to shovel the coal, right? Nah, it's neat. Altamont Circle is such a neat hidden gem in the city.
Yes,
It's
I
so
agree.
dense back there. It's really wild. And there's all those old garages that are, oh God, Robert and I, we go up there, oh, I hope nobody ever comes in and wants to knock this down, because it really is some neat old stuff back there.
Especially like the back connection to First Street. I want to
Mhm.
know like what went on there. You probably know that story, Jeff, but like it's really interesting.
Which one?
There's like a pedestrian connection between the back of Altamont and First Street.
I can't find it. I know there was an alley there that was one of
Well,
Are
those.
you
it's
talking-
not there anymore, but
There's
Yeah.
Sherry, there's a little alley between Altamont Street and Altamont Circle, and that's actually right by my apartment building.
oh, maybe that's what
um,
I'm thinking about.
Yeah, that's a really kind of special little walk.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
kind of
that's
hard
what I
to
was
find
thinking
upon.
about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But there's not a shortcut. Like when I walk up Hedge to First, there's not a shortcut over. I got to go out to Marcus or High
Right,
Street.
right. Sorry, yeah. No, I didn't mean you're right. Yeah, Altamont Street and Circle, right? Not First Street. Yeah, you're right. There's no connection there.
Yep.
Well, congrats on your new digs, Robert. I'm glad the city is paying you so much.
No,
It's the same digs.
You can now live in a basement apartment that has a walkout.
I'm very lucky to have my apartment. I like my apartment a lot. But also, I don't know what Jeff said, but I've been here. Really, truly, Sherry, I just moved my computer 90 degrees. That's
Okay, okay.
yeah.
But we are starting a GoFundMe page for Robert's car. He sent me a picture last week on the holiday. He's like, well, I hope your weekend's going well. I walked out to drive home and then it's a
Yeah.
mush to car. So
I don't have a car anymore. It's not my fault, but
they're giving him $1,200, right? Something like that towards there.
I don't know. We can move on with the meeting though, Jeff. I think it's been 5 minutes.
Well, I think
just-
Robert Edwards disappeared again, so
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Robert
He comes back
Robert
and
used
confirm.
to, yeah, we got 1 minute.
Ah, there
Robert
he
used to buy and sell those kind of cars, and you know, Sherry and Tim know people. So
That sounds a little sketchy.
Cars are more
Well, town.
expensive now than they've ever been before, so I think I'm going to wait.
Can we send them to the Mercedes dealership, Robert? And Robert Watkins, I know Robert Edwards. All right.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Yes. So we were joined by Lee Boys. Thank you for joining us. She's going to represent 936 Rugby Road. I can go ahead and share my screen if Jeff will get started on the staff.
I'll get started.
presentation.
And Lee, nice to meet you. You don't even have to leave Southern Albemarle, which is an extra bonus. This is a COA request for 936 Rugby Road, and this is in a historic conservation district. So this is not an ADC district or an IPP. This structure was built in 1911. It is contributing in the Rugby Road Historic Conservation District and is stucco vernacular dwelling designed by Eugene Bradbury. The request is to for an addition onto the sort of the west south side, and also in the application is a covered porch at the rear. Looking at the grade and the back of the house and the rules for conservation district, it's my my opinion that that rear covered porch is not visible from the street, and therefore doesn't fall under the BAR's purview and doesn't require COA. I can certainly answer any question you have about that, but that was that's my recommendation. In the discussions again, you know, and Lee, you've not heard us talk about this, but just to make clear that this is in a historic conservation district, and by design, those districts are less rigid than those for an ADC district or an IPP. The historic conservation district designation are intended to preserve the character defining elements of the neighborhood and assure that new construction is not inappropriate in character, while minimally imposing on current residents who may want to upgrade their homes. So within the existing districts, you know, there are buildings that might qualify for individual designation. This has not been submitted as an IPP, and so you need to apply the conservation district guidelines only in review of this request. And the only thing that I found that I would ask you to discuss is that, and this is, Jody Alejandro would be proud of me for raising this, is that the use of the exterior chimney on the addition, and it is a new architectural element. There are 4 chimneys on the house. They're all are interior. So that the only thing that, you know, from prior conversations, Jody's not here tonight, but I know that is something that he's pointed out. So that, other than that, staff's recommending approval for this. So any questions for me? Lee can you make her speak, Robert? Help her speak.
You'll just need to unmute yourself, Lee, if you can.
Oh, there we go. And I'll mute me. There you go, Carl.
Sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't have any questions at this point.
Lee, if you care to give a presentation, I'm happy to go through your application, but if you don't have anything to add, the BAR can go ahead into questions, whichever you prefer.
You all can go ahead, have at it.
All right, well, I guess we still have one member of the public. So are any questions from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9. Oh, okay. Questions from the board? Comments? Comments from the public? Raise your hand or press *9. Comments from the board?
I was supportive of putting this on the consent agenda, given that it's not it should be an IPP. It's a significant Eugene Bradbury, but because it's in a historic conservation district and not in an ADC, the only thing that staff asked us to look at is not the only, but one of the focus was the new chimney that's exterior instead of the ones that were interior. But the location of it is really not at all prominent to the street side, and just given the lot, I don't know if anybody else could see it, just given the way the house is situated in the lot and the vegetation on both sides of the house. So it looks like a very thoughtful addition to this house, and I'd support this.
Do you want to make a motion?
If I can find it in the materials, play music, do something.
I'll just add, I think it is a really successful addition. I think the chimney being exterior actually helps because, and also the width of the addition is inset slightly from the adjoining original portion of the building. And so by having that step in and then having the exterior chimney, which is different from the original house that has all interior chimneys, helps show this as an addition and not part of the original construction. So I think it works well. Really nice.
Mr. Chair, I'm ready with a motion unless there's more discussion.
If anyone disagrees with your motion, we can discuss it.
Having considered the standards set forth within the city code, including the city design guidelines for historic conservation districts, I move to find that the proposed addition at 936 Rugby Road satisfies the BAR's criteria and is compatible with this property and other properties in that conservation district, and that the BAR approves this application as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. Calling a vote, Mr. Schwartz,
Yes.
Mr. Gastinger,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Zemer,
Aye.
Ms. Lewis,
Aye.
and Mr. Edwards. Thank you very much. The motion passes unanimously.
Great
One
work.
thing I just would like to say is it does seem, Jeff, like this ought to be an IPP house.
We have a lot of those.
Yeah.
And it's probably, but I can say that right now, the only way something's going to be designated IPP is if the individual property owners propose it. Yeah. Right. So I think Kevin wants to go for IPP for his 1957 house, but his wife's really not for that. So, but yeah, Lee, if the owners are interested in it being, it's probably eligible for state and national register designation, which does not come with any regulations, but it certainly I know that the district was looked at as a historic district, but I don't think it went as a PIF to DHR. But if the owners are interested in that, state and national register designation, we certainly can discuss that. And then the thing that they're talking about is an individually protected property would be, for example, my house is an IPP. I'm not within a historic district. I'm just, I sit all alone in North Downtown up the street from Sherry's house and across from Breck's house. But but it has an individually protected property, then has the same BAR requirements of the more rigid districts. But so national register, state register, one thing, local designation as an IPP is another. We can certainly talk about it with the owners if they like.
Maybe the owners, after they do this addition, might be interested in the designation.
Yeah, right.
I might know them.
You know them.
Great work, Lee. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too, Brett.
See y'all. All right. Next up. I feel like, it's like one of these shows we're going to ask Karen a question and Kevin has to leave the room and then come back in and see if they answered the same way. Sorry, just see, we rarely get the couple sitting on the couch together as part of our grilling experience. So, all right, this is not a request. This is a discussion right now, and I'm not even sure to call it exactly a preliminary discussion or a pre-application conversation, but because that's usually what's required for anything that's a project in excess of $300,000. This is a demolition request. So, but this is at 745 Park Street. This is a 1957 1.5 story brick 1950s Rambler. It is identified as a contributing structure in the North Downtown ADC district. It's worth noting, though, that when this section of the district was established, everything was designated contributing. The Riddles are contemplating alterations to that house. It seems that maybe the wisest course is to raise the existing house and start from new. And so that's the discussion here tonight. There are other components of the site, I think, that Kevin has raised in what he presented to you all. So, so not just focus on the house, but any issues that you all have, or any items on the property, elements of the site that maybe want to be retained. We can have that discussion. And I treated the staff report as if it were a demolition request. So if this were to, well, when it comes in, presumably, I can simply, this is what I will give you. But I, really try to take a look at why is this house in the district, and it's similar to that to the house around the corner on Northwood that was seemed to kind of be added but didn't quite fit. And what I've learned from going back to the old from the records is really just when they established this portion of North Downtown. It was later expanded, but it really was, if it's within this boundary, then it's contributing. And the map there that is on the screen, you look at what's on the opposite side of the street. If it's got, sorry, Robert, I'm going to go down to mine because that's too small and my eyeballs aren't working. So if it's got a black lettering, that's the year built, then it was constructed prior to 745 Park. If it's obviously the one 1957, it matches that. And if it's green, it was built later. But what you can see is on the opposite side of Park Street, in an area that was left out of the ADC district, pretty much everything predates this house. So it sort of raises the question of, I don't think this structure was included for its contribution to the district. I think it was just at that early point of discussing historic districts. If it's in it, keep it. There is an abundance of homes and structures identical to this around town. So this is not unique. In fact, I would say its uniqueness in the report is that it sits between within a block of homes that it doesn't fit with. So I realized that we could make the argument for no, don't raise this structure, but I don't think those really hold up. And so that's my recommendation, is that the raising be viewed favorably, and that you all then have that discussion again about what's on the site that could be incorporated to the new work, and then anything that you might think needs to be considered in the future design. So that's how I approached it, and I'm going to pass it off to Kevin and his wife and let them have the conversation with you all. Again, just a preliminary discussion. There's no action to be taken. You all can certainly express to the Riddles a consensus view on how you think they might move forward. But again, it's not an approval. It's not you're not granting anything. So with that, Carl, back to you.
Kevin, did you want to add anything? I mean, I think it's pretty complete, and but go ahead and add anything if you'd like to.
Yeah, I'll just be very brief. I think Jeff summed it up pretty well. We just want to make improvements to the house, and we've lived in it about 16 years, so it's been a solid house for us. But we realized the improvements we want to make would change so much of it. We just wanted the potential flexibility to basically demolish it to the foundations. We haven't determined, we're not determined to do that yet, but we thought it might be useful to come to you guys now just to discuss it, just to verify that you agree with us that its designation as a contributing property is probably just more an accident of its location than anything else. So that when we're preparing a design of a new or modified house, we know that we have that flexibility to demolish it.
Well, I'll kick off. Fine by me. The other thing I think, from my perspective, I think the stone wall, I think working with the stone wall would be great. I don't see those arbor vitae as being particularly wonderful. I know they're big, but they're also pretty pretty out there, you know, pretty messy. And anyway, they don't do much for me because they don't really work well with the rest of the streetscape. You know, they're really pretty hostile in their way. So I'd be fine with you just taking it back to the stone wall and then figuring out what you want to do after that. But yeah, that's my 10 cents.
Yeah, those arborvitae, they've been nice for screening us, but I agree, nice street trees would be a great substitute for those.
And that way Carl will support your demolition.
Because I'm going to be the holdout, right?
Don't do it, Carl.
There's an open stair, Kevin. You can't do it.
We're going to come out with something in the dark green stucco. You're going to love it.
I think the staff report and your application made a really compelling argument, and I think you should go ahead and submit an application when you're ready. But my opinion. Anyone else?
I agree.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think that, you know, obviously when you get to the newer structure will be trickier, but I think that there's a lot of things going on Park Street as well. And I think that it would be great to have good documentation of your home so that you can remind everyone on the BAR at that time, you know, the improvements that you've made.
Yeah, agreed.
Does it make sense for the applicant to get approval of a new design before he tears his old house down?
We know.
Yeah, for sure. We just wanted to make sure going forward with the design that you know, demolition was an option.
Yeah. It actually is surprising to me that this is really. I thought this end of Park Street would start seeing takedowns far sooner than this, so it's kind of surprising me. This is really the first one we've seen.
So what kind of comment is that? Like, why haven't you demolished your house already?
Yeah, well, that's a point.
We are not offended. It's a crappy house.
No, I'm just thinking more about kind of the size of the houses and the property values and all that sort of thing, that it's surprising that there hasn't been more. I mean, there have been a couple that have been expanded, had a second floor added. On the other hand, the houses on the east side, some of them are actually quite huge from the from the east. I mean, quite large.
You go, yeah, that alley in the back. They're
kind of gigantic, but it's just, you know, in terms of the scale of Park Street, excuse me, a lot of the houses just don't cut it. That's all.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not knocking this house. I mean, I think there's hundreds of people in town who live in this house. Basically, it's everywhere.
Sure.
Right.
But yeah, we just realized we'd be preserving so little of it to do what we want to do that, you know, what would be the point?
Now, the real blasphemous statement would be to tell you to wait a couple of years and then you can put a little apartment building there.
That's a different meeting. That's a different meeting. No, actually, to Tim's point, I think you guys have a chance to really set some precedent for that end of Park Street, because maybe there will be more modifications to the other side of Park Street, especially. So it'll be great to have you guys in setting the example.
And Kevin really likes to come back to us over and over and over again. So he's the perfect candidate.
Well, Kevin's also eligible to sit on the board.
Yeah.
But then you have to.
Oh, yeah.
He has to
So
recuse himself.
where are the balconies going?
We want to see the mountains.
Oh, yeah. Well, I congratulate you for Kevin. You didn't talk your wife into buying a falling down 150-year-old, or I guess mine. So yeah, 140-year-old house like mine. So that's you did good. So are there any questions about what might go there? Is there any sort of direction that would be helpful, Kevin, or just you just want to know how it looked with the demo?
Yeah, I figure that's at our end to bring you something so that you have something to talk about. So hopefully that'll happen sooner than later.
We do have an opening for an architect on the BAR. And this North Downtown group seems to be working well together.
I don't know if you don't need another aging bearded man, dude.
Who was insulted there? I'm trying to figure that one out.
Yeah. Tim's he's not bearded.
Defying the trend.
All right. Anything else?
I don't think Robert's quite in the aging category yet either. I won't speak for Carl.
I'm not 40 yet. Come on.
Okay.
Isn't that the over the hill point?
No, that moves every decade.
Yeah.
For the record.
Well, later.
Okay, I'll be the parliamentarian here.
Yeah.
The applicants don't need to hear us.
No.
Go through this.
I will say, Kevin, pay attention to the schedule for like when you decide to apply for demolition, if you decide. I don't think those applications are valid for as long as a COA. Okay. I could be wrong on that, but just make sure you, take a look at that.
Okay, sounds good.
Is that right, Jeff?
I can't recall. I just know that in January we'll have 3 new BAR members, and they may tell you got to keep the thing. So who knows? Maybe you want to get that thing into me next week.
Yeah. Okay.
There's the minor place of having a place to live, but we won't go there.
I believe it's an 18-month COA, just like all others, and it can be extended by a year with reasonable request. So I would get it in.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Thanks, Peter.
All right. Let me find my notes.
We're also joined, Jeff, by
yes,
Ali
please.
from Auto Street Food. So Ali, I'm going to promote you. You're going to be well, he'll come in.
So can we do this, Robert? Will you go to Street View and put it on the screen and go to the building? I will also send. I just don't want to go off in a tangent without some context here. And if I can, so yeah, there you go. So this is I think it was built in 97. So it's not a historic building. And I'll let Ali speak to which openings he wants to address. But Robert, if you would drive down towards 550 East Water Street, don't go through any stop signs.
This way?
Nope.
Other way.
To the east.
Oh, sorry.
By the way, have everybody gone and checked out the code building? That is just, I'm loving it.
I've got a little comment about that.
Don't look at that thing there on the left. Yeah, the thing we shall not speak of.
Wait, Jeff, what building am I looking
It's yellow
for?
on the left. It's the Sun Tribal. One more block.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go. And so the I talked to Steve on Storch about this, so that so they left the window frames in place. That had been from the prior renovation, and then when there was a restaurant in there briefly, and they put in those doors. They so took the glass out of the frame, but then put those up and down doors to the rear. So at first I thought, all right, well, maybe that's the idea, but I think that the intent that they have at the other end of the street is for the roll down door to fit to the extent that it can flush with the wall. Now, I don't think you can get something that fits into the opening like a door. It has to be recessed into the room. So that's I'm showing that just to say, there's the idea of doing a roll down, but possibly leaving the existing frames storefronts, but unglazed is one solution. And then the idea of there's not, I look, there's some design going on at the windows above. If there's, but there's no, they're relatively simple storefront here that think about when you would have a roll down door, you would be introducing the horizontal bar. So kind of, is there something that would be from a design preference?
I mean, you could use like, they're expensive, but I mean, the Renlita style door, which is kind of like an aircraft hangar door.
Mm-hmm.
It would have a center. It would have a center half. There'd be a mull going through the center that breaks, but basically it would just fold up and it could be in the plane of the roof and would fold up right where the canopy is.
Yeah. So let me pass it off to Ali.
Ali's budget. They're pricey.
I was just going to say, I think Miss Ali has a specific window in mind,
right,
like he can show us.
Let's look at that site, and Ali, point out where you're talking about. And again, reason I'm kind of giving this visual is that if there's one window, should it be done in others? Is it okay to do it in one? Those are the kind of things we like to give Ali some direction on. So,
hi, good evening, guys. Thanks for listening. I've sent my project over the email. I'm more than happy to send it again. I'll talk with our building owners architecture as well. So if you can apply this project, even though, even though as you guys were mentioning, the building is not 100% considered as a historic building because it was built in 1997. I still don't want to damage any kind of look. We want to work with the same measurements. So when I called this company called Apple Door, I brought this guy, who's going to install the windows for me. I said, I want to make sure that all the measurements are the same. Also, I want to keep the same color code too. I don't want to make it look like weird. So, I want to respect the environment, but, especially in the restaurant industry, they have a big staff shortage. If I place an order right now, and by approving, it will take them at least 5 or 6 months. Unfortunately, it's just in the industry after COVID, this is what's been happening. The reason I strongly request these cases because, I'm a new restaurant who opened a year ago. And one of the biggest requests from me is the clients, hey, do you have any patio seating? And I want to offer them just from outside. People don't know what is going on exactly. And since my concept is street, I want people to feel that's the street view, without harming or damaging any kind of changing much construction with the image of the restaurant, if it makes sense.
I just sent, I forwarded you all the email that included Ali's initial note to me, and then my response with some of the
things.
So
I'll share my screen now, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, these are the current windows, and I think these are similar to what is being proposed. Here's one, and then here's another. And then from Ali, I received another email with a drawing for the proposed specific door, and it's this.
We go to the street view and see which windows we were.
Yes.
We're talking about.
So Ali, specifically, is it all of the windows that you have in
Not
your
really.
space?
Specifically, the one right on the corner, right? This one, that right,
This
the
one?
arrow, correct.
Okay.
And also the other one on the Water Street.
This one?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Because again,
Oh, I think we might have just
building.
lost. Oh,
Yeah, and I've realized this is the biggest thing. You know, we want to make sure that people are aware it's a restaurant, and I'm just, you know, with the COVID, it's not much helpful. People just passing by and they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize there's even a restaurant here," even though with the sign, it's just. But with that, you know, the windows just being adjustable, I think it's gonna go great, and I'll really appreciate you guys' assistance. You know.
yeah. I'll forward you right now to the BAR all of the images that I have so far, so you can review them on your own screens.
That seems like an appropriate approach to me. I feel like it's probably just figuring out some of the details and making sure that it really works and understanding which, but I don't have any concerns.
Let me.
Yeah, my concern was answered by the street view, which was that the windows on the other side or east side of the Water Street doorway are already different from the windows of this restaurant. And so therefore you don't have a symmetry issue. On the second floor, on the upper floors, they are the same across, but on that first floor, they're different. So I wouldn't find this objectionable.
And there's nothing particularly heartwarming about the windows that are there anyway.
Right.
The only thing, just judging by the drawing, would be, I think I would reduce the number of panels if they can do that, because the separation's so fat at 4 inches, 4.25, that I think if you get it, what do you have right now? 4? I'm just remembering this. I didn't. Did you email that to us, Robert? The drawing?
I just did right now, Tim.
Yep.
Okay.
Should be right there.
I don't see it yet, but anyway, right now it's at 4 panels. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I mean, my gut would be that you'd want to knock it down to 3 if they'll do that, and then you've got your glass area relative to those muttons is a little more graceful.
Okay. I can request it from the company, you know, instead of putting 4 panels, since this is going to be a custom window anyway, I think they should be able to submit that for us.
Yeah, because that way your glass will be a good bit bigger per pane. And as long as it can make, I think the thing that's going to be the guiding thing is how steep the curve is as it goes into how high is your ceiling?
Let's see.
Or how high above the window opening is it? Do you know?
There'll be like it will be all the way up, you know, just like the entire window view, you know, it will be adjustable all the way up.
I'm just saying that there's a given height that you have to meet between the top of the window and the ceiling just for the curve to work. That's all.
Got it. Let me just put it in my notes, and then when I'm talking with this architecture, also the installer will make sure that we follow up this measurement rule out there.
Yeah, I just wondered, they may say that you need to have the smaller panels. That's why I was curious.
Got it. When I called this guy and did the install, he was like, he really agreed with everything. They're like, do not worry, we will make sure that we are following everything rule, because I made it very clear, you know, this is something in the downtown Charlottesville. I don't want to place an order and then just face with that difficulties, you know. Yeah.
So let me just let's make sure we address that. So there's you know, the situation, you know, Ali wants to, he would like to move forward with an order, get something in process, but the fact remains that this is not an approval by the BAR. So you know, it's I think another question, Ali, that you should make sure you talk to Francis at the city and zoning and make sure that this can be done. Or I think actually that had initiated your, did you hear back from them? Was everything good on when you talked to Craig and those folks?
Yeah.
I just make sure that the BAR, you know, can at this point sort of give you an affirmative that this would be, they would respond to this favorably, but we then still got to get that a formal application and get it before the BAR in October. But the other piece would be that whatever the building code officials say you have to follow, that you also make sure that that's you get those checked off as well. And then from the BAR side, almost treating this like when we have a large project COA, kind of you all are offering an informal affirmative here. So I would recommend that you get as much detail clarified. For example, if a window, we know how a garage door works, will the existing storefront be removed completely? Things like that. So what would be the trim piece? If you all, and I'm speaking to the BAR, how would you treat it so that we can give him some good design recommendations?
Also, are you going to need a guardrail for when the door is all the way open? If you do, and the guardrail is on the outside of the roll-up door, which I think it will be, we're going to want to know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
tomorrow. Yeah, I will be in touch with the Apple door who is going to install it for me. I will be getting all the details step by step. Also, how is it going to look from outside? Just like kind of like graphic design on the I want to give you a photo of actually this is what it actually looks like from inside and outside with the measurements. So I think it will be more clear with those 3 panels. I want to work close with you guys until this next board meeting, but at the same time, the bar meeting, I'm sorry, and then giving all the necessary information.
So what's key is sort of just cross that T, dot that I. Ali, you and I get squared away, get me an application and get it in. We'll work through the details as we head into the BAR meeting, but to get that application in, and I guess, our next, I think, so next Tuesday would be the deadline. So you and I can talk about that. And then internally, I can talk to Craig and Francis about any questions that we're not anticipating. We make sure that we account for those. And I know some of you on the BAR asked me about the accordion windows and things. The fact is that there's
Jeff, they make ones that open inwards.
Okay.
They do.
But all right. And if that would be fine. But yeah, anything that opens into the sidewalk would probably be.
Ali, the reason I brought that up for Jeff, and I don't know what your ceiling height is inside there. And I don't know how big these windows are, but my concern for you is that when you get this installed, it may look fine on the outside. But when the door opens, it may be a really low ceiling. It's going to end up occupying a large portion of your ceiling.
Lights.
So just to think about that, is that going to work for you?
Correct.
And if it doesn't, the accordion style window might take a little less space.
Today I had a meeting with my landlord. Our ceilings, the ceiling has a tile there, adjustable. You can just open them, and if you want to get more space, you can actually insert more. And I was like, will that be okay? He's like, he doesn't find any issues. I said, the only thing is that I just need to be in the same page with the city, and everything will be fine. He said, if any other support is needed, he's going to be on my side of, just making sure that the project gets done. So I do appreciate you telling me, because tomorrow when I talk with this company and making sure how is it going to look, and I want them to show me a graphic design of, okay, this is what's going to look like exactly. And then, I can submit that photos for you guys, so we can be all on the same page. All right. Apple doors. So you said I have another week until I submit this other necessary documentation, correct?
Yes, Ali. And then later, if there is any additional information, you have until the Friday before the meeting to submit it. So you can continue to maybe send any additional information. We'll work with you on that.
So what happens? It gets, so by the Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month, we have to mail our letters. So we have to just be able to mail it out and say, hey, this thing's coming to the BAR. That's why That's the most important step. And then this is something we want to make happen. So we'll work with you to get the details, but it's to get in that application so that we can send out the letters. And just so I'm clear, is you're talking about the two openings on the 2nd Street side. Okay, I'm going to send a note to the folks internally and say, hey, what does this need a railing? What are the, tell me which hoops and hurdles we have to jump through.
Wait,
And then
it was one opening on the 2nd Street side and one opening on the Water Street side.
oh,
correct?
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the most healthier answer for that be myself talking to this company and getting all the details and then sending you a project submitted, not only the scale and the measurements, but also how is it going to actually look on the window. Just like you were like screwing like my windows out there, I want to show you something very similar with the next project. So, okay, this is what it's going to look like from the ceiling, from the inside, I mean, interior, outside, and then, you know, that can be giving us a better idea, you know.
Ali, just to be clear, we don't need to see what's on the inside, but I mean, you probably want to know what it looks like on the inside.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's of course.
That
I mean,
stuff
that's
is not, we just care about the outside.
Yeah, perfect. I appreciate you telling me. Again, honestly, this is my first year in the restaurant industry. I mean, I've been managing, you know, being a manager and then being owner is really much more different. Let's say that.
Well, everybody needs to get down to Otto's because it's a fantastic lunch. And
It's my new favorite place. I've been going for a couple of months. So
Well, I appreciate you guys. I just say it's my slogan. It's healthy, affordable, and delicious. It's unique. Let's say that.
Just don't say BAR approved, because that's, I don't think we're allowed. We have to, we can't sell our likenesses yet. We don't have a contract for. There's
Oh no, I do respect you guys. That's the joke. You guys are always welcome. That's all I can say. Sincerely, I mean it.
All right. So, Ali, you feel good with this? Everybody else?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
You know where to
Thank you
find
very-
Robert and I. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank
All
you
right,
very much.
BAR. I'm going to wrap up some things real quick. Do we? I guess there hasn't been a place meeting, so there's no place.
There's no place for place.
And you know, and Jody is the planning commission is again discussing the comprehensive plan, and that's sort of I've been pushed and pulled a lot of directions trying to answer questions about that discussion, although they haven't sent me anything during the meeting. But so you know, hopefully I'll have Jody back soon. So I had. I don't have any questions about projects. This has been great. You all, you know, speaking with Ali, and Ali, you don't have to listen to us banter. Although you, a business owner within.
Okay, so
we need a restaurateur in the BAR.
If you're interested in joining the
you're
BAR,
dying for
there's
something to do.
Okay.
No kidding. But so so I don't have any questions. We addressed this one. A couple things just to put in the back of your heads. We have. Per our policy, we have a November annual meeting. And so I'd like to, you know, think ahead to that we have our elections then, and we can sort of, we could talk about just spend some time at that meeting, you know, agenda permitting. Just you all are you're charged with being the historic preservation stewards of the city. So there are some things that are going on that believe it or not, fall under your purview in an advisory capacity. So I think it's, I think I've been at this job long enough that I can bring those back to you. And we have a good discussion about the BAR's role in historic preservation and design in city in general. The elections will be up. So if you know you want to run, you can get copies of your thing made and hung up at school so that everyone knows that you're running. But it would be the position of chair and vice chair. We're due we haven't done a holiday get together in a while now. I think we owe you a couple. I'm not sure what's going to happen in October. The city's been following the cases of the Delta variant, and kind of all the projections were that everything's going to be peaking like we're going to see the really bad numbers in across the country and locally over the next 2 weeks. And then I think some decisions will be made about going back to in-person. I would be surprised if decisions made to do that in October, but there's still a possibility of that. I will let you know, but I think, and Robert and I will circulate this. I think, we really want to get everyone together. And I mean, we haven't even met Robert. Some of you haven't met Robert in person. I just think it would be, even if it's to invite you all over, to my front yard or Robert's basement, maybe we can do a walking tour up and down. But
Met anybody in person either, Jeff?
What's that?
I haven't met anybody in person either, except for the people.
Yeah, it really is. It's
that's not true. We met at the
yeah.
When you did self-demolition.
Inspection.
Jody.
Hey, we did reinstallation.
I know.
Yeah.
His lights are working.
Yeah, I just had a hard time being in the room with that puppet. So, I think hopefully we can do something formally like we've done in the past and get everyone together. But if we can't, I really want to get everyone together and yeah. And for Vice,
what is Sherry doing?
Vice Preservation. I really don't like Vice Chair. It sounds like that if like Carl gets hit by a bus, that Breck automatically becomes that. I think
that's the purpose.
It sounds more like he hunts down drug dealers or something.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just
No, he's in charge of distribution.
It's
Vice Chair.
And then so finally, just on the ADC district design guidelines, and I'm pretty sure I expressed this. The concern being that we don't want to go through a process and have council say what was your public engagement. Did you do this? Did you do that? So I talked to my boss, and I actually have a new boss. Robert and I spent some time, James Fries, and he and I met with Robert, Missy, and I, and met with James on Monday, and there was understanding that that's a valid concern, that council likely want to know that we've done something. So we're putting together a request to include in the CIP to provide some funding to do that. It probably won't happen, but I still can at least put it together and kind of express what it is we want to do and why we want to do it. And it's primarily getting a consultant that would give us an update on our guidelines, that would do the proofing for us, just change some things that need to be changed, and also give it a good background check to whatever's going on currently in the preservation and design world. So I think that we've tried now for 3.5 years. I'm willing to say that it's worth some expense to bring in a consultant to help us do that. And so that's what I'm working towards. However, I'd still like to, before Carl and Tim leave, is make sure that there's a lot of institutional thought and memory there on some things that we should, just like we did with glass, just like we've done with lighting. If there are some policies that the BAR could sort of adapt as a here's how we've interpreted this particular guideline, that would be extremely helpful to me, and certainly extremely helpful to the BAR going forward.
And hopefully you guys still have the comments I sent in a collection of comments. I don't know if Breck has sent in some. We had at the last meeting established October 1st as a deadline for BAR members to review the guidelines and submit comments. Is that still happening? Is that still okay, Jeff?
We'll make it work. Yeah.
I think it would be important, yes, we need to do the community engagement portion, but I think the BARs we also need to submit our own ideas for what needs to happen. So at least you have it compiled whenever that process is going to finally move forward. It's saved someplace. And let me know if you don't have my comments. I thought I sent them to you, but I can find them again and resend them if I need to.
You know, and then Sherry, if you're you know, to sort of exploit your law degree here, if you don't mind, they will be, once this comprehensive plan revision is adopted, the next phase is a zoning rewrite and an update. And I've been encouraged that if there are things in the ordinance for historic conservation districts and ADC districts that we'd like to clarify to sort of get those in. I think some of those things there's some things that could be probably written better, written more clearly, but if you've got some thoughts on that from the legal side of things, I welcome that, and certainly from all of you. So I'm learning that if we want to do it, we have to do it. I mean, if we want to put it in motion, then we as staff and BAR have to put these things in motion. There's no invisible hand out there guiding this economy. This is our little world, and so kind of, and I think expressing that too in the future to folks who come on the BAR and saying, you know, you got to do homework outside of class, and but not saying you haven't, but that this is really, you know, realizing that we have to take ownership of this, and because we are BAR is its own best advocate for preservation and good design in the city, and you know, let's take charge of that.
So on the guidelines, Jeff, I just wonder if there were some areas that you could suggest or that could be suggested to us, like, you know, do you think this is problematic? Do you think this is problematic? It's really hard for me to just read the design guidelines sort of in a vacuum and go, oh, I've got a monumental problem with this.
I agree. I think that there are, I think one is always helpful is I'm big on graphics and images, and I feel like illustrations and photos are, you know, helpful of, you know, to say, oh yeah, that's what they mean. I think we also have a lot of examples, and I can send this out to you, you know, the list of projects we've looked at that, you know, where, all right, what's been a recurring theme here? Or what have been the things where, you know, Jeff and Robert, well, no, Jeff consistently misses, you know, stuff that sort of we assume is going to be taken care of, but maybe it's not in a checklist. So I'd be thinking, you know, Sherry, to your strengths of sort of that, you know, all right, what is that step by step? And, you know, that I would like to envision where, you know, and Brex has, you know, I said, you know, this is why we have the BAR, but there should be a lot more that I, as staff, am able to feel comfortable with, okaying or at least, you know, reviewing. So, you know, I said, just give some thought to, you know, geez, what are the dumb things we've had to look at, or, you know, what's the last bean that then says, take this to the BAR, or what's it, you know, help with the decision-making process of.
So is that one of your suggestions, Jeff, that there should be more things that we are allowed to have staff administratively approve?
I think so, or it's in as an example, and just, you know, not the only example, but I think trees. I think that I think there are some things that we can recommend now, just like we did with the tents on the mall. I think that there are some general guidance principles, interpretations of the design guidelines that we can simply say, this is how we kind of do this, because nobody's hanging over us saying, you know, hey, Jeff, you let that person replace their roof with a phone call, and oh, that person, you took it to the BAR. I make some judgment calls on things. And I think, for example, trees are an example. When there's a street tree on Park Street, it's, I think, you know, maybe, you know, there's that, okay, I really want to take it to BAR, but here's what we're looking for, you know, an arborist letter and a replacement of XYZ. And so that, you know, we all know that trees, you know, not all, but some trees are planted in the wrong spot, and they're just, or you all have probably be seeing something in October about 2 very large trees over near the university that are right up against the side of a building. Huge, gorgeous trees, but they're in the wrong spot. So it's kind of, trees are a place that I have a lot of angst. And then the second one is windows. I think we really want to rethink. We're getting people replacing windows because they're not going to come and ask. They don't want to be told they can't. And so I've got to figure out some sort of flexible means to, what's that threshold at which we say, no, you can't replace those windows. That's probably the thing that gives me the most heartburn is the discussions with people about, no, you got to bring it to BAR, here's what you need to do, and they don't want to hear that. So, but I think but from a process point of view, Sherry, that's where I think you can look at those guidelines and say, yeah, these are great at saying, think about, but really from a decision-making process, how can that be better delineated in there? I don't mind hypotheticals. I think case studies are a great way to present something, but to think about for examples where we've just not known, like today with that front door. All right, if we had to decide on this, what are the questions we should be asking? And even if it's a operating procedure guide for Robert and I that we can all sort of agree going forward, this makes sense for the BAR. Sorry, I'm belaboring this, but I really a good read of the introductions, because there's a lot in there about old Charlottesville that doesn't really speak to current Charlottesville. And I think that we very much need to incorporate the new thinking. And we went through that earlier this summer, talking about the statutes. I think a lot of what was prepared for that and Breck put that work into that, that's got to be incorporated in our guidelines in some way. Even if now, like I said, it's a matter of sort of, this is our policy, that the BAR has adopted. Last thing I will ask you all.
Can I answer just about, I think just highlight two things that I think are really problematic about our guidelines. One that Jeff mentioned. One is the illustrations. A lot of them are outdated. A lot of them are not appropriate. We need better examples. And secondly, that problem of the introductions. The introductions are poorly written. They sometimes include kind of actionable information, but it's not clear because it's in the introduction. It's not mentioned again in the actual guidelines. So there needs to be a clearer distinction between the two. And then I think our descriptions of the neighborhoods and the really salient characteristics could be better expressed.
I think I've told you what we had in Mary Joy's cabinet. I found there's a style guide for some interns went around and characterized neighborhoods throughout the city, and it's that should be brought into this. But yeah, I agree with you there. The other thing I don't want to forget is preservation awards. But anything else? Any other?
So do we have so we know there's a deadline of the 1st, and I haven't sent anything in yet, and I'm gonna need all that time. Do we have a suggestion for the next step? You mentioned several in your email, Carl.
Yeah, and so it sounds like Jeff wants to put that on hold, but it would be, my thought was that we would have a couple of us would do a work session and try and compile everything. But if it ends up being that we're going to hire a consultant to compile everything, maybe this deadline doesn't make as much sense, but we still should have a deadline to get it all together.
Right. So a couple things. I think in order to formally move forward with update, and remember the Historic Conservation District, entrance corridor, ADCs, and the IPP. So there's a lot of stuff that has not been updated in a while. So we've just been talking about the BAR stuff. The ADC stuff. I haven't even sat down and talked to the Planning Commission yet about the entrance corridor. So it makes sense that if we can get someone to help us with that. But what I would also like to do while I have you all and is to just like we did with the tents, there are some things that maybe it doesn't become the official design guidelines, but it becomes the basis of things that we talked about this. We talked about what we meant by not just solar panels. We talked about other, the green design aspects that might go on a building. So, and then there might be elements from those discussions that we can, like with the glass, like with the lighting, adopt some sort of an understanding of what that, how we interpret those guidelines. So there's purpose in this. It's not formal, but I feel like if I don't get you guys to make me have a deadline, Robert and I are a year from now going to be going, you know what? Didn't we say we were going to do that? So I really want to tackle that. Now, in that light, I'm going to add another thing to your homework. Craig Fabio is on a weekly basis saying, what does the BAR think about the downtown mall? Is there anything we want to change on the mall? Because there's where we get a lot of questions and a lot of stuff is happening. So, Sherry, that's good when we, take a walk down the mall and you go, oh my God, how did that happen? Or why is this being allowed? So that we can begin to, if there's some things we need to address. And I think it's one of those places is we see it every day. We're so over, there's so much going on. But take the guidelines and say, does this say what I'm seeing? And I think that from you all, think about it. 3 years ago, Tim kept saying lights, and it kind of took us a while. But you don't know this, but I've worked with Park and Rec, and we have a lighting standard for the bulbs that they use on the lights on the mall. So we are able to influence things. We just sometimes we're not following through, and that's where one of the things on the mall I could use your help with. And in that vein, something that we're getting asked about is, well, you let us do tents. Can we do these year round now on the mall? What about putting up tents in the winter so that we can serve outside? Just give that some thought, because it's going to come back. And
just so we are clear on that one, our tent comments put a clear end, which was okay. So just as long as that hasn't been forgotten.
Hadn't been forgotten, but I think that, as we feared, not fear, that's the wrong word.
Going to take Craig he's going to have to be mean and go out there and say, you're done. Take him down.
Well, what'll happen is it'll go through the Economic Development Office, and there's so it just, then an update on the mall, that we are getting going on that first initial steps of the cultural landscape report, primarily the PIF level, which is that initial review level to evaluate with the state process to evaluate eligibility for the National Register and State Register. But when Robert and I met with James on Monday, and this is James, it's Freeze, right? Robert, is it Freeze?
I'm not sure how to put.
Yeah, I think it's Freeze, but he was really he was up in Massachusetts, and in his role as a planning director was also in economic development. So he's been really interested in how the mall functions, as that constructed landscape, but also as that economic engine in the city. So he was very interested in this discussion of like, well, how do we approach the mall? How do we make decisions about the mall, and how are we proactive on the mall? So I'm enthused about the opportunities, and the support there, because that's what Brian Daly with Parks had said all along, is we need to recognize we can't just take the mall and just let it go. We have to maintain it. We have to talk about the tree grades. We have to talk about the trees. We have to talk about the furniture and the lighting. So, and James was very interested in that and supporting how do we move forward proactively citywide. So I'm excited about that. But think about them all, the design guidelines. What would you change if you could? And tents, They're going to ask us if they can keep them up year round. What do you think? And preservation awards, start thinking of nominations, and first one being that porch at the top of 2nd Street and High, which is phenomenal. If you guys haven't walked by there.
Did we ever actually issue the rewards from last? We didn't make much of a fuss about it, I guess.
We announced them during a meeting.
We did, yeah.
I think one of the applicants was actually there during that meeting, if I remember.
I think we took balloons to someone's house, didn't we? No, it was completely. So I don't know if you all can see this. So was digging around in.
Nope.
I make better,
Yeah, it's
I
all right.
make better signs than you.
It's a little, so Robert, I left one on your desk. I don't know if you went in, but I found a box of these ridiculously heavy, like index card size bronze plaque. It says City of Charlottesville Historic Preservation Award. So we revisit those. Looks like give something. I thought about just putting one on the back of my house here just to say, yeah, I got that. But so that I would like to think about that ahead of March of next year so that we can sort of wrap up the year, and with Tim and Carl participating in, what do we want to recognize and let acknowledge, and let's do it correct. And we don't have to do a whole lot. Don't even have to do anything, but I think there are some candidates out there, and I'd be up for, you all bringing them forward at the November meeting, and maybe we can set that as a deadline. Is that helpful?
I got a couple quick things when you're done.
When I breathe, when I inhale. Look, I'm going to mute myself. Watch this.
But you are done. Okay. Future pre-meetings. What's the plan? What do we want to do? 15 minutes seemed like it worked. Is that good? Or do we want to start at 5 and just rush through questions and then get on to some of this stuff that happens at the end? Up to you guys.
I was about to suggest that. Is there a way that we can tackle this stuff at the beginning, the pre-meeting, so that we're not?
I think that would imply starting at 5.
Doing it now.
Your questions.
Yeah, and that way we're locked within the restrictions of a half hour.
Okay.
I don't mind that. I just find it really awkward that the first applicants are all in the room, and it does not feel like not that we need a private meeting. It just seems difficult to begin a conversation in earnest with all these people in the room.
Early stragglers.
Correct. That's just the nature of, I think, how communications is set up. The meetings nowadays.
Yeah.
I can see if they'd be willing to change, but I have a feeling that they just prefer to send instead of how they used to. Where people were.
Sure.
Can we do a panelist only breakout room?
In the past, I know there's been a little bit of consternation with breakout rooms on a public being publicly witnessed or
But we're okay. So pre-Zoom, were our pre-meetings open to the public? Because I remember we just
technically they could walk in that room if they wanted to.
Technically, they can walk in if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's by state law.
Yeah, and also, Breck, for what it's worth, the applicants were often already in the attendee list before anyway, so they could still hear what we were saying. It's just now they have a little box associated with them.
Yeah.
Okay, so 5 o'clock, and we'll try and get through as much as we can. I don't think it's going to get rid of all the extra discussion items, but at least it'll take a chunk out of it. So we need a new person for the zoning rewrite. I can't serve on that anymore. We won't have a meeting probably until February. It's not a lot of work. You just have to, the meetings are long. At least that's how it was for the comp plan. Nobody's jumping on it, but
that's a new thing.
It's a continuation of the comp plan. It's just the timing worked out perfect that the comp plan steering committee is done with their work and we were going to start doing zoning rewrite stuff in the new year. So it kind of worked out perfectly with me leaving.
I'll do it, even though I just promised somebody that I wasn't going to make any commitments during this meeting. I swear to God, I said I'm not doing it.
If you only focus on the BAR concerning
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
it makes
yeah.
it a lot more, because there's a
I'll do
whole bunch
it.
of people that'll look at everything else.
I'll do it.
Thank you, Sherry. Does play still exist?
It shouldn't.
Yeah. All right.
It's
Before the
pretty
new
much,
year,
it's pretty much eviscerated, but I'm not giving up on the lighting stuff, even though I'm leaving.
well, and my only point in that was that if we have a BAR member on place, we're going to need a new one in January.
Yes.
So think about anybody who wants to do that.
But when Tim leaves the BAR, he'll have lots of time to look at the zoning ordinance and add provisions concerning lights, right?
And he can email you.
I know where he
and do all the
lives.
work for you. And I can guarantee you I'm going to be a pain in the ass with the zoning, so I'll email you. Was there anything that happened with that house on Altamont that was ripping out their windows? Is that just a done deal?
I walked by Carl, and I didn't see any activity.
Interesting. Okay. The Starjas on the corner of Altamont and High Street, I think, came to us multiple times and put a lot of effort into their house. So I can imagine they're going to be frustrated. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is, this is just nitpickiness or randomness. I know we really fussed about the trees in front of the landmark being a very specific species or not. The trees in front of the code building are beautiful, fantastic, huge oak trees that used to be maples. I don't think we should do anything about that, but I just wanted to call attention to that fact.
Yeah, I noticed that I didn't remember ever reviewing the landscape plan for that side of the building.
Well, they were supposed to just put it back as it was.
Well, I think we knew that it couldn't go back as it was because it wouldn't make sense with some of the things that were.
I think it is going back exactly as it was. I think.
Is this where the old stairs to the ice rink?
The Vinegar Hill Park.
Higher up.
Yeah, the
Higher
very first chairs in the median on the stairway down from Water Street to the mall.
We don't need to do anything about it. I just wanted to
that's
mention it. I think the oaks will probably do better, but
the maples haven't.
See about this, so
Maples haven't been performing very well, but this is a much larger continuous bed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sorry.
No. In fact, Carl, that's exactly what I expressed to James is that there's the mall is it's the perfect example to explain sort of the city, some of the issues where that interface of the BAR, Parks and Rec, City Council, et cetera, et cetera. And I met with Sam Saunders, who's the new deputy city manager who will be in top over neighborhood development, Parks and Rec, Public Works, and I Robert and I met with him a couple of weeks ago, and we just sort of like, yes, and I said, here are the trees. What would you do? And so I kind of let him ask questions. I said, well, then there's this to answer, then there's this to answer, there's this to answer. And I said, and he goes, oh, does this have something to do with putting a planter over an old tree grate? I said, yes, it does. Goes, yeah, I heard about that. And I said, but it's either the BAR has purview or it does not. And I said, so right now the city has given that to the BAR. The tree commission is an advisory body. The Parks and Rec are employees. The BAR has been given that design oversight. And I said, so either we go with that or somebody tell us what else is going to be done. I said, but that's we're washing our laundry. I said, but with new folks coming into the city and management, it really is saying, let's understand how we're going to move forward with these things. We're going to get a new, you guys may or may not know, director of public works left, the director of Park and Recs has left. So I think I think I'm fire chief now, and Robert is in charge of something.
You don't want to be fire chief right now.
Yeah, we just keep moving up the depth chart. You know, I'm going to get on the field sooner or later, but it really, so we're trying, there's opportunities here with the folks that have come in to say, you know, I mean, they're listening to staff. What do you all think? And I think this is again where the BAR, you all, and as residents of Charlottesville, and certainly being involved in this process. You know, if I could fix something, this is what I would do. And they're very open to that. And you can guide them through me if you like.
Do you guys still send out postcards each year to people in ADC?
We haven't.
No, can we talk about something else?
Okay, how about we adjourn? But just wanted to.
We're planning on it. We're planning.
Okay.
Also, Jeff, this is an aside, but Molly, our GIS person, is coming back earlier than expected.
Oh, good.
So all of our GIS needs will be able to be met sooner than we thought.
Yeah. Robert's been the junior GIS guy. So
and sorry to jump down your throat on the GIS, but it's if you ever take a plat map and superimpose it over a property boundaries on the GIS is nowhere. I mean, it's very far.
bragging to people
all the time in my practice, honestly, people thinking the GIS are boundaries of property.
I know.
Like, no.
I don't do that, Carl. I do.
You don't, but
I'm the Band-Aid while our regular GIS person.
Yeah, sorry.
So.
He caught hell because somebody in Pavilion 10 wasn't getting their mail or something.
I got a complaint from a dean who went in the pavilion because USPS wasn't delivering to them.
Say, hey, you want to be fire chief? We could trade.
I didn't get my mail for 3 weeks. Postal Service's fault.
Oh my God. I got blasted by some people over at Preston Place because they got the letters like a week after the BAR meeting. I just can't, you know, I could just stick it in the
Warner
box.
Came to the post office and said it's the worst one in the state. That's adjourned.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
I have a real quick request of maybe Robert or Jeff with regard to the awards. If it's not too hard, could you send us a list of who's won the awards and what the categories were roughly called? And that might just kind of spark some ideas about similar people, applications, all that we've seen in the last year. Thank
we
you.
compiled all that, all kind of the research on awards last year.
Yeah, that's
so we can just forward it to
Thank you.
and,
Awesome.
with what we did this past year.
Thank you, Robert.
Can we go like most appropriate demolition? Maybe we should do that. You know, just give Kevin one of those just for the hell of it. All right, you all.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
I want to thank you all for making me feel human tonight. I've had a couple of phone conversations like this today, and I'm loving this, actually seeing people. All right, guys. Thank you for everything.
All right.
Thanks, Jeff.